My name is Aaron. I'm 43 years old. I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I am shunned.
All right, Aaron. So how'd you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
Well, like many of your other guests, I was born in. Um, on my mother's side, her grandfather, I know, was a witness. I don't remember. I think he came into the truth. The truth. There I go already.
Don't worry about it. Everybody does it.
I hate that.
I know. I always just say the cult. I change truth to
I try
cult.
not to say that either, though, because of my boys. But
Oh, no, I understand. Yeah.
The organization. How about that?
The organization. There you go.
Yeah. So, my grandma said that he came into the organization after World War II. So she said he probably had some trauma, maybe PTSD or something from the war. She said he saw horrible things, and the witnesses found him like they do. And I think he must have brought my grandfather into the organization too. So, but it wasn't right away. So, let's see. They came in the truth. My grandparents came into the organization when my dad and mom were both around 12 or 13. So early teen years. And they both came into the same congregation. So they met each other. My parents met each other in the same congregation when they were early teenagers. So they knew each other during their upbringing, I guess. So that was my mom's side. And that my great grandfather, the one that came in after World War II, he actually died out in service, or he fell down someone's stairs out in service, my grandma said, and crushed his skull. And he died at the hospital like a few hours later. So I know you've mentioned in your story or in talking that your dad almost did that or fell a couple times.
He fell off a porch or two, or kind of down some stairs here and there. He almost fell off a stage giving a talk at the Kingdom Hall because the neuropathy in his legs was so bad because of his diabetes, and he didn't ever take care of. There's no self-care there. So so was your grandfather, did he have any some sort of health problem that contributed to it?
I don't think so. I think the only thing was his eyesight. My grandma said that he had poor eyesight, but he was completely healthy other than that. So he must have missed a step or something and fell.
I mean, that can happen to anybody at any time, but that's awful.
Yeah, and he was older when that happened, and I think she said he was around 80 when that happened. So and in my family, it's kind of a source of pride, I guess, that he died, out in service.
Yeah, he's like a martyr.
Right? Yeah, martyr. Yeah. So anyway, that's my my mom's side. Her parents came in when she was early teens. My dad's side, I think his parents came in when they were they got caught out in service, or door to door. Somebody came to their door. And both of my grandparents on my dad's side were baptized, but then when they banned smoking cigarettes, my grandfather was disfellowshipped, and for the rest of his life. That was, I don't remember when that was. Was that like early 70s? I think
I think it might have been when they kind of changed the rules around that.
Yeah. So they must have come in to the organization like late 60s or early 70s, somewhere around there. And then, so they met. Yeah, that's my family background, really. Basically three generations kind of on one side and two on the other.
Yeah. And then you're basically born into this, and it's all growing up.
That's all I knew.
Yeah. So what it mean to you? What was the worldview it gave you as a kid when you were growing up in it?
Um, I don't know. I feel like I tried really hard to be, what I was supposed to be, what my parents wanted me to be, a good witness kid, but I didn't like being different either, like at school and not being able to have cupcakes at kids' birthday parties and things like that. So there were times when like the teachers would scrape off the happy birthday off of one and get me to eat it, and I'd be like, that's a good compromise, I think I'll do that. So sometimes I would
Yes.
partake, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to be different. You just want to have a cupcake like
Yeah,
all the other kids.
yeah, but it also taught me um to be different, and that to feel like I didn't fit in, you know um just, yeah, not feeling like I fit in anywhere, being somewhat afraid of worldly people and the world, um just because you're brought up, taught that everyone else is Satan.
Sure. So
Everyone's not a witness.
when you say that it taught you not to fit in, did it teach you that you didn't fit in and there was something weird with you, or did it make you feel like it was okay not to fit in? In fact, you're not supposed to fit in.
Yeah, that's more. Yeah, that we're not supposed to fit in. Like we should be different from the world,
That can even become
different
a
from the
source
kids
of
at school.
pride.
Yeah, yep. And you get that bloated sense of, we have the truth, and all these people don't know. You know.
hmm Yeah, and that's kind
Yeah.
of
So.
weird to feel as a kid because children naturally want to fit in with the other kids at school,
Hmm.
and yet you are almost being bred to want to not fit in with the other kids at school or the other people around
Yeah,
you
and
in life.
you're fighting your own instinct, kind
Hmm
of.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but I did have friends at school. I mean, I guess you could call them friends. I didn't really know them other than at school. I was allowed to have one kid over one time for like an hour after school. And after that one time, my mom didn't want any more. I mean, nothing happened. Like we just played and had fun, and then his mom came and picked him up. And but that was the one and only time I was allowed to have a school friend over to our house.
Yeah, did she get a guilty conscience after doing that or something?
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it was that what happened, but anyway. But I did have friends at school.
Mhm.
Um, I tried to be as normal as I could and also be a witness, if that makes sense. Normal. I don't know
I think we
what that
were all
really
doing that a
means
little
anymore.
bit, trying to seem like the
Yeah,
other people, even though we knew we weren't.
yeah. And so kind of struggling also with, is that a double life? Am I leading a double life because I want to fit in at school, but also have these pressures from your parents and stuff to not fit in at school.
Yeah, again, which is the double life, right? Because there's
Right.
one that you actually wanted, which was to have friends at school. That's the
Hmm.
life you wanted, and then the double life is kind of the one where your parents are making you be somebody you're not,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is tough.
Yeah. So that was kind of my worldview, I guess,
Yeah.
for that question.
Okay. So let's get into school a little bit. What was life like at school for you? You said you had a few little friends there. Did you like school at all? Was that a good
Um,
thing in your life or no?
yeah, it was good. I I like the social side of it. I didn't like, I did okay in school up till probably junior high, or, mid junior high, maybe eighth grade, seventh or eighth grade. Um, then my grades started dropping. So that part of school I didn't like. Um, I wasn't good at math. Um, so I had trouble with that. But I liked being at school to hang out with kids. I got to play sports in PE. Like PE was my favorite class because that was the only place outside of, with my brothers or brother or, boys in the congregation that I could, play sports.
So what'd you like to play?
Basketball in particular.
Okay, there you go. Basketball, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was always fun. I always did my best in PE, and then the other classes I just kind of scraped through, did what I could, but didn't get good grades really. And the other thing is my older brother, so I have a brother who's 3 years older than me. He did really bad in school. He got really bad grades. And when he did try really hard and he got good grades, he always got rewarded with something. And I got good grades, up to that point, and I never got rewards for doing that. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind. I feel like, when I got to junior high, that just trying hard and getting good grades, he's getting rewarded for failing and then doing okay. I think maybe that was also in the back of my mind and why I didn't do so well in school.
Well, yeah, that's got to be tough. You see your brother, he's basically being rewarded for his failure, right? Because he failed.
Kind of in a backwards way.
Right, in a backwards way. And then here you are, you've done well. So it's like you've got to fail to try to get some attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably what it was. I was just,
Yeah. Well, that's normal.
Yeah, that was school. I'm trying to think if there's anything of note I can say about in school. I really wanted to join sports, like I said. I think I might have asked my parents once if I could play on the basketball team, and they said no. And then we had a big study about why it was wrong, and so that was fun.
Yeah, you kind of learn not to ask questions, don't you?
Yeah, after that, I never asked again. Mm-hmm. So, but at school, when I'd play and I'd try really hard, and I'd do my best in PE, the teachers saw that and they would say, hey, you should join the basketball team or, whatever sport we were playing. And I just said, I can't because my parents won't let me. I didn't really make that decision mine, if that makes sense. I kind of put it off on my parents because I felt that way. It wasn't my choice to not play. They didn't want me to. I knew the reasons that they said, but those didn't really make sense to me.
Sure.
Like the bad association. I felt like we're told at the meeting that if it comes down to it, you should be able to stand up for your faith in front of the president or, the United Nations or whoever it is. You should have the strength and faith to be able to stand up to those people and tell them what you believe. But I can't play sports and have strong enough faith to not fall out of the organization because I'm playing basketball with some other kids that don't believe what I believe. It just didn't really make sense to me. So it wasn't really my reason for not playing or not being able to join.
No, I like that. You didn't own it because it wasn't yours.
Yeah, but I also I think I felt guilty about that too, because I knew I was supposed to own it. It was supposed to be my reason for not joining, but I didn't deep down feel that way. So.
Okay. So obviously school was something where I guess you had a few little friends, here and there, but it wasn't something, obviously, as one of Jehovah's Witnesses and a kid, you're not able to fully participate in school.
Yeah.
And it ended up being tougher later in life because you were then struggling a little bit academically. And it may have been some of these reasons that we talked about. So what was life like at home growing up? What was kind of the temperature of the room? How were things at home? Were you all a happy family? Did you go do things a lot, or were things kind of tough? What was your family like?
So my preteen years were good. There was nothing. Oh, there's one event um, that kind of relates to the witnesses. So when I was, I think 7 or 8, um, we were moving from one house to another. My dad had lost his job, um, so we were moving from a big house to a smaller house, and it was just down the street, like not even maybe a quarter of a mile away. So my dad had gotten a new job. He was at work. It must have been in the summertime because we were all home. All the kids were home. And my mom was like 8 months pregnant and packing stuff in the car, moving it down the streets and unloading it with all us, the 3 older kids. So I have one older brother and then 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. So there's 5 kids total. But there was three and one on the way at the time. Anyway, in the process of moving stuff over, when my mom was unloading the car at the new house, my sister and my older brother were riding their bikes in the street, and my sister got hit by a car. And I was in the driveway playing basketball, and my brother came racing in on his bike and just jumped off without even stopping. And as he jumped off, yelled that she got hit by a car. So, and he ran in the house. So I went out to the street and I walked down there, and there was a woman in the road, just like running around and screaming, like freaking out. She was the lady that hit her. And then my sister was like balled up in the fetal position in the middle of the road, and there was like blood around her head. So she had a pretty bad head injury because she wasn't wearing a helmet. This was before, I don't know if there's helmet laws in every state, but in Washington, this was just before they did the helmet laws. And they actually used her story in the newspaper talking about, changing the helmet laws, or making it a law to wear bicycle helmets. Anyway, so I remember my mom running down the street, like huge pregnant. And to this day, I've never seen a pregnant woman move that fast. It was crazy. She was sprinting down the road.
I could only
But
imagine.
I understand.
Yeah, that's a lot of
So
adrenaline.
then, yeah. So then, she was in the hospital in a coma for like a week. Right when they got her to the hospital, the whole blood issue came up, of course. So my parents were adamant she couldn't have blood. The doctors were arguing, and I think they had some lawyers or something, the hospital lawyers, because what they did was they got a judge and took custody of my sister away from my parents for the time she was in the hospital, basically. So they really didn't have any say over her medical care after that. So that was kind of a traumatic event. And I remember praying about it. And so I really didn't think, I thought she would be okay. And she did recover. She was in a coma for like a week, and then the swelling in her brain started going down. And I remember them saying they didn't really know if she would be okay after that, because they don't know what happens to your brain. Like specifically when it gets an injury like that, they can't really tell you if she'll be able to walk or, what it's going to affect. But it didn't seem to really affect anything later on in her life.
Good. Yeah, because
Was
brain
fine.
trauma can affect lots of
Yeah,
things
it's
in
pretty
your life.
scary. Yeah.
Do you know, did she have to take blood? I mean, that
I don't
just
think that
because
did
they
come
took
up.
custody of her doesn't mean that they gave her blood.
Yeah, they still tried to, they still tried their best to do what my parents wanted them to do. So they didn't end up giving her blood, I don't think.
Okay.
Um, I think I would remember that if they had. I think that would have been a huge thing, and I
I
would
think
remember
so.
that. But one of the first things, so my sister was riding my bicycle when she got hit. So one of the first things she said when she woke up, the first thing she said to me was, "Aaron, I ruined your bike." Like,
Oh.
I was like, "Thanks." So I don't know if that was, she doesn't remember that day at all. So somebody must have told her, "You were riding Aaron's bike and destroyed his bike." So what happened was she did a U-turn without looking behind her right in front of this car. So this poor lady just hit her right in the side. She broke her leg and had that head injury.
That's traumatic for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And the lady that hit her was really nice. She sent flowers and stuff to the hospital, and, wanted to know how she was doing. And so she really felt bad. It was a horrible,
Yeah,
horrible situation for her too.
for sure.
So that was preteen that happened. Other than that, everything was relatively smooth in my family. Um, my mom was, I think she dealt with some serious depression, like pretty much her whole adulthood. Um, and I don't know, I can't really blame her. She got married super young. They married like right away when they turned 18. Um, and then had my older brother like within a year, I think. So she had 3 kids by the time she was like 24, and then 2 more at like 30 years old. So they started really young. She didn't really have a life, I guess, or a life of her own before that. She was still a kid. So I don't know if that weighed on her. I've never really talked to her about this, why she was so depressed, but that just made her kind of detached from all of us. And she got angry really easily. She really had a tough time with my older brother. They butted heads a lot when we were younger, especially when he was a teenager. Um, so even now, I mean, not now, but when I was, 13 years ago, when I was still in contact with my mom, uh, we would talk to her about events that we remembered, and she has no memory of like any of our childhood, really. Like, I'm sure she has some, but we talked to her about specific events that to us are memorable, and she doesn't even remember it at all. Like, she was just not there. Um, I don't blame her for that either. She was probably just so depressed and focused on surviving every day or something, that she wasn't taking notice of really what was going on around her.
Well, the honest truth is that a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses are very depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, whether it's having kids really young and never having a chance to find or be yourself, or just being told your whole life who you're going to be, you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses. This is who you are. This is how you act. This is how you think and feel. If that's not authentic to a person and they have to try to fit themselves into a mold that is not who they really are deep down, then
Yeah.
they often end up very depressed, checking out, and really struggling with life. A lot of depression and anxiety inside the organization, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel for her. That's a lot. 24. She's got 3 kids, and
Yeah.
I mean, most witness marriages are kind of set up for failure anyway. You don't really know the person that you're marrying that well. It's
Yeah.
a
We'll
and
get
the
into that later in the story too.
okay. Okay.
With
But
my,
yeah, so it's
yeah.
tough. I'm sure she had a lot of struggles and
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
wasn't getting a
And
lot
that's
of good
why
help.
no, none at all. I mean, mental health and like getting help for it is, frowned upon.
Yeah.
especially back then when I was young. Nobody went to get help for mental health or saw a therapist or anything like that.
No, and if you
Um,
were a person who did, one of the rare people, you were instructed not to mention you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses because, of course, you don't want to bring reproach upon Jehovah's name.
yeah, yeah,
So
that's the main thing,
you
right?
can't talk about probably the main thing that's creating some of these issues for you.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard stories of other therapists that as soon as they hear that the person's an ex-Jehovah's Witness, they're like, "Oh, okay, I understand now a lot of what's going on here." If you don't tell them that, maybe they can figure it out, but yeah, it's a big part. It's a
It's
big
difficult
piece
to
that
figure out
if you're
even if
not
they know it.
telling someone, yeah,
Yeah.
if you're not telling someone, how are you going to get the help you need?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were always kind of felt, or I did. I guess I can't speak for my other siblings. Just felt kind of on eggshells around her until my dad got home from work. My dad was an amazing man. Um, he was what held our family all together, and um, we lived in a house that had a basement apartment, and there was another witness couple that lived under there. And they told us that they could tell when my dad got home from work because they said that the house would just light up, like they could tell when we get super excited he was home. um, I heard one of your other guests say something about how their one of their parent, I don't remember if it was mother or father, their personality was like a balloon that just filled the house, and just being afraid to pop it, like walking around in there.
Yeah, it was
That
their
was
mother,
kind
and
of,
like the angst and the anger, the intensity
yes,
like filled the whole house.
I kind of related to that. When I heard that one, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good analogy. And then when my dad would get home, he'd be able to like hold that balloon in a little bit and let us play like behind him. And that's what it felt like. Um, I don't feel like my mom was abusive, um, maybe emotionally a little bit, but I felt like I had a good childhood. There was
It sounds like she
no
was
abuse,
probably
luckily.
neglectful in some ways.
Yeah, maybe neglectful, but
Doesn't mean intentionally
but
so.
we had our dad. It sucks that she didn't make any memories with us. Um, it sucks for her and it sucks for us now, but um, I'm saying us and we a lot. Referring to like all of my siblings. It's kind of weird. I guess I better stop doing that.
No judgment here. I mean, you were an us and a we back then.
Yeah, that's weird that I think of it that way. Anyway, yeah. So that was kind of our family dynamic. My dad did a lot of stuff with us. He took us camping, hiking. He played sports with us. Um, just everything we did, all the fun things we did with our dad. And my mom, I remember her coming hiking with us like maybe once or twice, but then she had a knee problem and couldn't go, and or that was the reason she used anyway. Um, so she didn't really do anything with it. She'd stay home and work on crafts, and she liked to crochet, and she liked to do miniatures. Like she had a miniature dollhouse, so she'd work on that. I mean, this thing was awesome. It had like electricity and everything, like working lights. It was crazy. She spent a
Yeah,
lot of time on
that's
that.
yeah. My grandmother loves miniatures, and
Yeah,
she had like the houses and all the little cubbies and all the
yeah,
fancy porcelain painted stoves, just all kinds of stuff. I was always
yeah,
intrigued by it as a kid. It was interesting.
yeah. Hers had like hardwood floors, and like it was crazy.
Nice.
It's crazy. It was a nice house. But anyway, she spent a lot of time on that while we were, out doing stuff with my dad. So that was kind of the situation at home.
Were you all the family, like, so like spiritually, were you all a family that was super regular at the meetings, always out in service, that kind of stuff?
Um,
Studying a lot?
my dad tried really hard to have like a family study with us, and we did it. I won't say regularly, but he tried. Like he was for a long time, he was the sole breadwinner, so he had work, and then he was a servant, a ministerial servant for a while too. So he had a lot of responsibilities there. Um, and then trying to study with all of us and service, and it's just a lot. Like
Mhm.
they put a lot on people, you know.
A lot of pressure on Jehovah's Witness parents for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
and the kids.
yeah. So in like in the congregation, we were regular at the meetings. Um, I don't really remember. We were kind of. My dad never became an elder, or my mom never pioneered or anything like that. But we just kind of got the minimum hours, I guess. And you know, we were. I remember as a kid being encouraged to get the 10 hours average, you know, or try. I don't think I ever did. I don't remember, but there might have been a couple times I got 10 or more, but not very many.
Were you all
In
active
fact,
in the meetings and stuff? Did you participate? Did you comment, or did you like to give talks or anything?
um, I did, but I didn't like doing any of that. Like I just felt pressure that I had to. And
Yeah.
we moved around a few times in my teen years. So each time I'd go to a new hall, um, the brother in charge of the school, you know, would ask me, "Hey, do you want to join the school?" And I would try to put it off as long as I could. I really didn't want to give talks in front of, you know, 80, 100 people. And um, same thing with like commenting. I did it not very regularly just because I, you know, I'm just not that type of person, I guess.
Sure.
Um, yeah. I, I
And it's okay to
also felt
not
like I
be
didn't
that.
really have anything to add. And
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of the answers were just really basic and stuff in the watchtower. And
Yeah. What's God's name? Jehovah.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
dumb questions like that that sometimes were almost, questions of that ilk that were asked at times, or
Mhm,
the question
yeah.
was literally taken from a sentence in the paragraph word for word. And so you were just finishing the sentence
Yeah,
basically to answer the question. It's not exactly exciting, intellectually stimulating material. So,
yeah.
and then,
Yeah, the meetings were really boring.
yeah,
I I didn't like the meetings. I didn't like service really either. I mean, I like the social part of it, you know, like making plans with some of my friends or something from the congregation to go out and service, or going on break. You know, we
break
were
is the
going to service
best.
for an hour and then go to McDonald's or,
Yep.
you know, wherever, the donut shop, hang out there for 30 minutes and then go finish the rest of your time. That was the fun part of service. Never had any Bible studies or anything like that. I had, you know, when I got a little older, in adulthood, I did have some return visits, but nothing ever progressed past that. So I wasn't really, um, I never pioneered or anything like that as far as my personal spiritual goals. Um, but yeah, our family was, I don't know, just kind of the average, I guess. My dad was a servant, and we just all did what we needed to do to stay in, I guess.
Okay. Did you have friends? Did you feel like you fit in at all at the Kingdom Hall?
Um, yeah, I had some friends. There was a lot of kids in our congregation, and a big range of ages too. So, like I said, my brother was 3 years older than me, so he had a little group that was about his age. And then I had a couple friends that we played basketball a lot. that was pretty much my whole, you know, childhood, was just playing basketball as much as I could. So me and my friend
Well,
every
man, I would have been
weekend.
with you playing.
Yeah.
That was my
Oh, that would have
escape
been
too. I
fun.
loved basketball.
Yeah. And I think that it just built up more and more in me over my life that basketball's always been there for me, like a therapy.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think my parents have understood that really. It's kind of weird to think about, but people get that from a lot of different things. Some people get it from music,
Yeah.
um, so that's just my personal. Basketball was thing I could go and do. I didn't need anyone else to play with me. I could go to a local school and just shoot baskets for, I mean, all day if I could, if I had the time,
Yeah. I'll still
just
go get a
all day.
basketball and take it up to the park and just go shoot by myself at times
Yep,
because it's just
me too.
very, I don't know, you can get lost in it.
Yeah, it's
It's a
peaceful.
flow state.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one in my truck at all times.
I have
So
one in
I'll
my
be at
car.
work, like between meetings. I'll have like an hour to get to this other place. I'll find a park somewhere and just shoot baskets for like 20 or 30 minutes till I need to get to the next one. And then, yeah, so that's always been my thing since I was a little kid.
Yeah,
my
understand.
grandfather, my grandfather was the first one to put a basketball in my hand and show me what the hoop was for. I don't remember if I asked him or what, but I must have been like 6 or 7, and I haven't put one down since then.
That's awesome. Um, so how did life progress as you went into your teenage years?
um, the teenage years, it started to get tougher. Um, you start having all kinds of hormones going on, and you know all that stuff. So I, I had a tough time with girls. I wanted a girlfriend really bad. That was a big thing. Pretty much when you're a teenage boy, that was kind of your motivation for most things you did. So I got baptized probably because of that. Um,
Really? How old were you? What was the circumstances around that?
so I got baptized, man, I think I was 13.
Hmm.
One of the biggest lies that the witnesses tell is that you're going to remember the day and time that you were baptized. That is not true. At least it wasn't for me. I don't remember the date. Honestly, I think it was 93. So I was like 13 or 14 when I got baptized. But I mean, there was the pressure from family. Um, when are you going to get baptized? Just the little comments here and there, even from just people in the congregation.
Oh, you know it's an
Um,
expectation.
yeah, yeah. And I think even certain family members were like, almost encouraging you to be the youngest in the congregation to get baptized and that kind of thing. Um, just so scary. Uh, but I remember my sister had these friends, and a couple of them were older. My sister's a year younger than me, so her friends were right around the same age as me, and a couple of them were older, a couple of years older. And they were talking about this boy they liked or thought was cute in the congregation or something, but he's not baptized, so he's not, you know, viable man, I guess. So that kind of got into my head, I think, a little bit. Um,
Sure.
so if I'm going to be able to get married, um, I need to get baptized at some point, and I guess the earlier the better. Yeah. So I remember going over the questions. I had a tough time with the question about the elders. He asked uh, something about the position of the elders versus the rest of the congregation, and my answer was something like, "Well, they're over us, or they're I don't remember how I worded it, but he was like, no, that's not right. The elders are just like everyone else. But that was not the image that was portrayed to me in the congregation. That's not the concept that I got. Nobody specifically told me that, but you can look around and see what's going on and figure it out for yourself as a kid. The hierarchy, I guess, of how things work.
Yeah, we all
So
know
I
that
got
the
that question
elders run
wrong.
it.
Yeah.
The elders run it, but then so the answer they were wanting was that the elders are like humble servants
Yes.
below the publishers, just
Yeah.
there to help them out, not to lord it over them or anything, right?
Yeah. That's not really what I saw, or
Yeah,
the
you
picture
knew
that
what
I
the
saw.
reality was.
Yeah. So he didn't like that answer. I got that question wrong, I feel like. And then the other one was, he asked about my personal dedication, like in prayer. Excuse me. He said, have you personally dedicated your life to Jehovah in prayer? And that was like the first time I ever heard of that, really. And I was like, no. And I think he said, like, well, you might want to do that. And they passed me anyway and said, yeah, go ahead. He can get baptized. So
Aaron, do you know
I'm
how
not
many
what
people?
sure I'm not sure what percentage of the questions you have to get right to pass, but
Well, I think as long as the three men who go over the questions with you agree, it's arbitrary to
yeah.
some degree. Uh,
Yeah, and obviously they want more people getting baptized anyway, so
Sure,
just
they still turn some away because there's
yeah.
somebody there who's on a power trip or they don't like that family or what. It's just
Oh
it's
yeah,
it's kind
yeah.
of
I could see
arbitrary,
that.
but a lot of people didn't know that they were supposed to like do this big dedication prayer to Jehovah to
Mhm.
get baptized. It's just funny that you mentioned that because you're not the first person
Yeah.
to have said that. I just remember I was like, I don't know, so I just prayed like Jehovah, dedicate myself to you.
Yeah,
In
that's
his
what I
name
did.
we
As
pray,
soon as the
amen.
elder left, yeah, as soon as he left our house, I was like, okay, ran in my room, said this quick prayer. I dedicate, yeah, whatever he said. That's
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. I did the thing, Jehovah. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're kids. We're supposed to know
So
what
then
that
I
really
so then I was
means.
ready. I was ready for baptism.
Sure, sure.
I
That's
remember the day
ridiculous.
of
All
baptism, I
ridiculous.
was super nervous, like super nervous. It was at not the big convention, but the smaller like assembly hall.
Mm.
Um, I don't remember what they call it, but
The circuit assemblies or a
yeah,
special day
circuit assembly.
assembly.
Yeah, something like that. But at the assembly hall, that little pool in the front. So everyone's watching you walk out. Like they pause, they don't let anybody go for lunch until everyone's been baptized. So, oh man, I was so nervous. Um, and my sister got baptized the same day, so we were together. At least that helped me and probably helped her not be so nervous. But I felt like things were going to change like instantly as soon as I got baptized. Like I was going to be better.
Better in
Because it's
what
kind of what
ways? What was going to change?
uh, I don't know really. Now that I think about it, probably just spiritually. Maybe
But
I
I
was
mean,
going to
like,
be a better
is there
Christian,
something that
better.
was going on you were kind of running from or thinking baptism would fix? Or did you just think it was magic and it would just instantly make you not such a terrible person and a sinner or something?
Well, I guess I felt like uh, hmm, I felt like I was trying really hard to stay to be a Jehovah's Witness, and like it wasn't natural.
You knew it didn't fit, but maybe if you get baptized, Holy Spirit will make it magically fit.
Yeah, yeah, or there was some sort of magical thing that was going to happen, and I would feel better. Because I'm a teenage boy. I'm every thought that comes into my head is like that could be wrong or that is wrong. Or why am I even thinking this? I always had like curious thoughts, but I didn't ever, I won't say ever. There was a couple times I asked my dad questions I had about Adam and Eve, like the story of Adam and Eve. I think something in there was weird to me. I'm trying to remember what it was. But basically his answers were, if he didn't have an answer, it was, well, we just have to have faith, and or we don't know Jehovah's plan fully, so we just have to wait and see, and have faith. Faith was a weird thing to me. I didn't get that. I and I really had a hard time having like a personal relationship with Jehovah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't make a good relationship with something I couldn't see, someone I couldn't see and really talk to and talk back to me. That
Understood.
was
I
like
felt the same.
hard concept for me to get. So there was that too. Like I always felt like I really didn't have that relationship. I thought maybe when I got baptized that would fix that too. Um, when I was really young, I think I never brought this up to anybody, but I do remember thinking about the story of Adam and Eve, and Satan was the serpent. And I thought I must have been like 7 or 8 when this happened. But I was like, what if Satan wasn't the bad guy? Like, what if Satan was really trying to warn them? And then this like cognitive dissonance or whatever it is kicked in, and I got really afraid of that thought in my head. Like, oh my God, what does this mean that I'm thinking that? Am I an apostate? Am I, uh, the Antichrist or whatever?
Look at that. You're terrified of your own thoughts and feelings as
Yeah,
a child. You should not be terrified of
yeah.
them.
And I was afraid I never told anyone that, until I was an adult and left. And
You-
I told my wife, I remember telling my wife, and she's like, that is my favorite story of yours. Just, that's my favorite.
yeah, well, yeah. Look at the, look at the stories in the Bible, and who kills everybody? It's not Satan.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
there's a
exactly.
whole lot of
But
death and rape and all kinds of stuff going on, and it's not necessarily the devil doing it, and in a
yeah,
lot of the instances, and it's just really, you're not the first person to ask that question and to think that way. But of course, you're not allowed to even have the thought. You are
mm-hmm,
bad. Your thoughts are bad.
mm-hmm,
And they are a reflection of the fact that you, Aaron, are bad as
yeah,
a kid. And that's terrifying. Do you see how they use the fear to control people?
yeah. And even at a young age, I was. It was before I was 10. I know that I had to have been like 7 or 8
Mhm.
when this happened. When I remember
Scared of
thinking
your own
that.
thoughts, your own
So,
feelings, your own
and
body.
then especially after that, just not trusting my own thoughts or instincts,
Mhm.
because they're all bad.
Right.
You get that thought like just drilled into your head. So at baptism, that kind of maybe was a thought too, that maybe that will be fixed. I won't have any doubts. And even though I had that question when I was little, it didn't stop me from like getting baptized and any of that stuff. Like I just pushed it down, you know?
Isn't that what you're
And
taught to do your entire life as a Jehovah's Witness? To
yeah,
push everything that's you
faith,
down?
faith will fix it.
Yeah. Push
Yeah.
whatever you think and feel down, and then you can accept my thoughts and feelings because
Hmm.
I'm telling you, as the governing body or the elder or whoever is interpreting this, I'm telling you what to think and feel.
Yeah. Yep.
Think and feel my thoughts and feelings, not yours.
Hmm. Yeah. So, where were we? That was my
So you
baptism.
get baptized, and I get, where do you go from there after baptism? Uh,
One other thing, right after my baptism, I remember my uncle. So I kind of also thought after baptism, I'd get kind of a break from the pressure. I thought that, I just got baptized. I'm pretty young. No, not the youngest ever, but maybe people will kind of lay off a little bit for a while. No. Like immediately after I got baptized, my uncle was like, "You could be the youngest ministerial servant ever." So I was like, God, now I got to keep pushing for that too.
Yeah, man, baptism ratchets up the pressure, especially if you're a
Yeah,
young
it doesn't
male.
stop. Yeah, yeah, it doesn't stop. And then the other weird thing I remember about after baptism was uh, having to pray, and like if I was the only brother at the service meeting, I would have to direct everything, and I was 13. I remember one incident where we went to this was when we still met at excuse me at like personal brothers and sisters houses for service and for the book study.
Mhm.
um I must have went with my grandma. I think I went out in service with my grandma, and there was nothing but sisters there, and I felt this must have been before my baptism. Yeah, because I didn't have to do the prayer, but this sister had to put a head covering on and do everything just because I was there and I was a kid. It just felt really humiliating to for me and her. That was a weird thing to me. But yeah, after baptism, having to say the prayer, they didn't try to get me to do it like right away. But within a year, probably I was having to say prayer at like the book study, smaller meetings and service, and that was weird. I didn't like doing that either.
Nothing like being a 13-year-old boy trying to tell a bunch of grown adult women what to do or who to
Yeah.
conduct a field service meeting or something. And then, like you said, they have to wear the head covering. It's humiliating for everybody. It makes you feel like a bad person because your presence has made this sister have to do this thing. And it makes her feel bad because your presence has had to make this sister do this thing. It's
Yeah,
awful.
a grown ass woman. Like
Yes.
she was my grandmother's age.
Yes.
Like somebody that I like looked up to, respected in the congregation as like a grandmotherly type figure,
Yep.
and she had to like listen to me and demote herself in my presence is weird.
You had to be her
Weird.
spiritual head. It feels
Yeah.
that is a lot of pressure on a kid.
I remember comments from other sisters too. One of my mom's friends, after I got baptized, was like, now I got to listen to you too, or something like that. And I didn't get that at the time, but now I understand like that.
Sure.
Anger, or not, maybe not anger, but frustration that she was showing. Like, I have to listen to this 13-year-old kid now. It's weird. Yeah.
I'm sure it's the part of the misogyny. It's part of the
Trained into you. Yeah.
they put
Into
down
little boys.
they put down women and make them feel really terrible about their gender. They
Mhm.
and then elevating the male side of things, though. Again, like you're saying, it's not all fun and games to be a young male baptized witness either.
Yeah.
Nobody wins here. It's terrible. It's awful, especially when you're a
Yeah.
kid, and it makes everybody feel this uncomfortable. It is just an awful thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And
And
it trains little boys,
underappreciated for its awfulness
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for sure.
So where does young Aaron go as he's growing in the congregation and now he can say prayers at meetings and such? Did that ratchet up the pressure for you to like auxiliary pioneer in the summers, or do little
Um,
things at the Kingdom Hall?
I don't remember any pressure to like pioneer, and I think that was probably because my parents weren't pioneers, and I don't remember. My dad might have, like, is it auxiliary is like the 1 month or,
Mm-hmm. You
I
could do
think
it.
he
You
might
could
have
just
done
pick a
that a
month and
couple
do it.
times. Yeah, I think he might have done that a couple times, but that wasn't really a goal. Um, my grandma, she was an artist, painter, and she always wanted me to be an artist. Like, she's put these goals in front of me. Like, you could be an artist at at Bethel and draw all the pictures for all the books and stuff. And I was like, I liked art, as when I went to her house, she would paint and I would draw and stuff and paint with her. So she really liked art, and that was kind of her way of, you know how when you're a witness kid, nothing's right unless you can use it to serve Jehovah. So, like, I mean, if I could have convinced my parents that playing basketball was a good way to serve Jehovah, I probably could have done it. So art, if you can do it at Bethel, then that's a worthy um, goal, or a worthy, yeah, whatever. That's funny to me.
Yeah,
But anyway,
our art is acceptable, but it's good if you use it in Jehovah's service.
yeah, and that's the way it was with anything in your life. If you
Mhm.
can't use it to serve Jehovah, it's not worthy of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you should feel
um,
bad for giving much time to it because unless you're doing it for Jehovah.
yeah, but yeah. So baptism didn't change the way I felt. I was disappointed. Um, I got a little older. Things kind of just went the same in our family, and um, let's see, when I was 17, 17 or younger. Yeah, probably about 17. Oh wait, so my older brother, he was like the only one I was really close to, that I could really talk to about really personal stuff, or like I was close to him. He moved out like the second he turned 18. Like, he graduated from high school and then he was gone. So that had a big impact. I was 3 years younger than him. So that was pretty much right after my baptism, within a year or two, that he left. And that just left a big hole. Um, After that, I didn't feel like I could open up and tell, like, all these weird thoughts that I was having, like the Satan is a good guy type things. There was no one I could tell that stuff to. Um, so that was a big impact on me. Um, and then when I was 17, uh, we were going to bed at night, and my mom was watching the news. And there was this event happening, like, live on the news. There was a guy in a drugstore, that had a bunch of customers held up, and he was trying to rob the pharmacy. So my mom was watching this at night right before I went to bed. So I'm like, good night. I went to bed. Um, she wakes me up like early in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, do you remember that story I was watching on the news, the guy at the drugstore? And I was like, yeah, why? And she said, that was your uncle. So my dad's brother, um, he he had rough childhood. Um, he had drug abuse problems since he was, 12, 13. Um, and I didn't know till later, but my grandfather was pretty abusive. The one that wouldn't quit smoking, so he got disfellowshipped. He he was an alcoholic also, and things happened when he would drink. I don't know specifically what, but I know that he was at least physically abusive to his kids, my dad included. Um, I didn't know any of this until after my dad died. Um, then the family started talking about it. But anyway, so my uncle was probably abused also. He had drug problems. his whole childhood. He never really grew up, I don't think, from the time he started doing drugs. So he was mentally like probably 13, and he was 30 years old when this happened. He had gotten married. He had three or four kids, and still had all the drug problems through all this. He would go to doctors and tell them he had back pain and to get whatever pills he was getting. I don't know. Basically, he would do whatever he could get his hands on, I think. I remember family members saying they'd have to lock up their prescriptions or hide them when he was at their house, because he would go through medicine cabinets and steal people's drugs. So anyway, his wife finally had enough and told him she wanted a divorce and moved out. He moved in with his other brother, my other uncle and his wife, and got super depressed and probably started doing more and more drugs and alcohol. And so he was the one that went into that drugstore trying to get I don't remember what he was trying to get, but there was a bunch of customers in there. He had a pistol. He held everybody in there for a while, and then he let most of them go, and then he shot himself in the drugstore. So when the police went to go in after he let everyone in, he was dead by the time they got in there. Mm. So she told me this at 5:00 in the morning. Did you remember that story? That was your uncle. He's dead. He committed suicide in the drugstore. So that was really traumatic. He wasn't a witness. The only sibling of my dad's that was a witness was his sister, or that is a witness was his sister. His two brothers really struggled with alcohol and drug abuse. So yeah, he committed suicide. That was a big event for our family.
Waking you, why wake you up at 5 a.m. to tell you this? That's not a very, that could have been addressed if it has to be addressed, that could have been addressed much healthier. That's rough.
Yeah, I don't know. So then rough. Like the next couple of days we spent over at my grandma's house. I remember my uncle's wife, my uncle that committed suicide, his wife coming over, and she was outside for a while, like outside of the house, and didn't come in because she was really nervous that my grandparents were going to blame her because she had just left him. Finally said, I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce. And then he committed suicide. And then my other uncle, the one that he had been living with, him and his wife went down the wrong road after that. I'm sure they got super depressed. He was living with them and telling them how depressed he was and telling them, I should just die. And, all this stuff that people don't take seriously sometimes. So they felt really guilty, probably. They got further into drugs and stuff too. He had been in prison also, but when he was younger, he had alcohol problems. So when he would drink, he just did crazy stuff. He tried to rob somebody, and he tried to rob somebody, and while he was holding these people up, was twirling his gun around on his finger and shot himself in the stomach. So he ran home. They called an ambulance and he got arrested. So he was in prison for like 8 years for that. Then when the other uncle committed suicide, they did the same thing. Him and his wife tried to rob somebody, I think is what happened. And he went back to prison for another, I think 5 or 6 years. And his wife went to prison for, I think, jail for a few months. It was her first offense, so she didn't she didn't get like a long sentence like him. But then when he was in prison, she overdosed and died. This was all when I was probably 16, 17. So just a lot of trauma happened from my uncle committing suicide. A lot of events
Yeah, that's heavy. That's a lot
after
for a
that.
kid to try to take on.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you, was anybody at this time, obviously you were woken up and told that something had happened, but did anybody ever sit you down and make sure you were doing okay and ask how you were doing emotionally, try to make sure you were all right with all of this?
No, not
Or
really.
offered
I
any
mean,
therapy or anything like that?
no
Yeah.
therapy for sure. No.
Jehovah's Witnesses just don't value or understand mental and emotional health at all.
Yeah. I think the only therapy was the elders came to my grandma's house and talked to all of us, and
Mhm.
encouraged us, said that, well, maybe he'll be in the new system or maybe he'll be resurrected, but we don't know for sure because he committed suicide and he wasn't a witness. So, um, my dad, I think, was kind of hopeful. He said that I remember him saying, "We don't know. The only thing we do know is that death is the wage for, or the
Mhm.
yeah, you know what I'm
Wages
saying.
sin
That
pays is death.
yeah. So when you die, that's the end of your sins, or your sins are forgiven, I guess. So that's what he said about it.
Yep.
But then other family members were like, "No, he committed suicide. That's you don't come back from that, I guess." And he left a note in his car at the drugstore, so he went in there to do that. It wasn't like it just happened and he, you know, that was his goal. So
Mhm.
that was sad. And I remember they let me read it too. His suicide note. That was really rough. They had
Why?
it there. They had it there at the house, and everybody was passing it around and reading it. And
Okay.
yeah, it was really sad and rough to read that. I mean, I was 17, but still, I mean, I
But
wasn't a
did
little
you
kid, but
ask to read it or
no, it was just there. Nobody like put it in my hand or forced me to read
yeah.
it, but it was there, and I read it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
somebody's
was rough.
pain on paper.
Yeah, and just the thoughts of not um, being worth anything, and um, how he screwed up his whole life, and just no hope or anything at all, and apologizing to everyone else for whatever this is going to cause, or the aftermath.
It's that uh well, it sounds at least reflective of the JW shame. You're
Yeah,
never
I
good
mean,
enough no
that's the
matter what you
thing,
do.
right? You don't have to be a witness to be affected by this, because
Mm-mm.
he was raised in the same house as my dad, with my grandma who was a witness. My grandpa was disfellowshipped. Um, yeah, so he had probably a lot of the trauma, religious
Mhm.
trauma and stuff too, that everyone else has. Just he
Yes.
never bought into it.
You don't have to buy into it to get the trauma from it.
No, it's insidious, man.
Yeah. Yeah, they make you feel like a terrible person. That's what shame is.
Yeah.
So where do you go from there?
So from there, I'm thinking here. Um, I I told you earlier, there was a brother in the hall that I had done like smaller jobs at this point. It was 17. I had a job like cleaning a metal shop. I got fired from that. Um, I had a job cleaning with my uncle, and then I got a job cleaning um, at Paul Allen's house. That was pretty cool. Um, he got he it was massive. Do you know who Paul Allen is?
The owner of
Uh,
the Seahawks?
he was the owner of the Seahawks and the Trailblazers, Portland Trailblazers. So I worked for this brother who owned this company that he had like a cleaning service, they did like construction clean. So we cleaned at Bill Gates's house too when it was being built.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty cool. So I got to see like parts of the world, that were really cool and enticing at that point. But yeah, so that was one of my first jobs. The really cool thing that I loved about Paul Allen's place was he had a full court, a basketball court with like the Blazers scoreboard, over the center. It was like legit, and I was like, oh my God, I want to play there so bad.
That's awesome.
But I was just like cleaning windows and stuff in there. Yeah. The recreation center at his house was awesome. Yeah. So anyway, like moving from job to job, little jobs like that at first. Then this brother, I remember being at the Kingdom Hall and meeting and noticing him like just eyeballing me. He was running the microphones. And so when he's going down the aisle, he'd just be like staring at me. I'm like, what is going on? So after the meeting, he comes up and offers me a job. So I figured out he was just kind of, I don't know, sizing me up, I guess. So he had a construction business, so he was an elder, and him and another elder in the congregation were business partners in this construction company. So I started working for him, and I'm 17, making, I think I started at $6 an hour, something like that, and I was like, I'm gonna be rich. My only job up to that point was just little part-time stuff. So having a full-time job was cool. Before that, sorry, I need to go back. I knew this was
go right ahead.
When I was still in school, after my brother left, something happened at the school or somewhere. I don't remember what it was, but my mom freaked out and she took all of us out of school. So I was in ninth grade, I think, when she did that. Maybe 10th grade. So she took us out. My younger sister, who's a year younger than me, she started doing like a correspondence type of school where she send in the test and that kind of thing. And so my mom wanted to homeschool us, but she didn't really do anything to homeschool us. Like after I got that job, those elders told me you should probably go and at least get your GED. So I did that. My sister graduated through that. I think it was called American School.
American Homeschool.
Like
Yep.
Yeah. But my two younger siblings, their education was poor, like really poor. I've talked to my younger brother, and he has very little math education. She just didn't do much with them. My brother's done really well for himself, though. He has a great job, so it hasn't affected him at all.
Well, it's not affected him career-wise, but I'm sure it affected him.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, career-wise, and then who knows what he would have been able to do if he had,
Sure.
a better education and been able to go to college or any of that stuff.
Unfortunately, a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses pull their kids out of school and
I
have
didn't know
zero
that.
qualifications to ever teach a child.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't know that till, waking up to all the ex-JW stuff, that's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
That, one little thing happens at the school, and yeah. So my younger two siblings didn't really get much education, I don't think. So then I got my GED after I'd started working full time. And that was tough, man, working for two elders and being a witness. There was just pressure all the time, like all the time. So if I missed a meeting, I'd hear about it at work. If I didn't go out in service on the weekend and they found out I played basketball, on the weekend, they're like, you have time to, go play sports or basketball, but you didn't go out in service. Just pressure like that, like all the time.
If you can play ball, you can go to the hall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things
That's a
like
good
that.
saying. So yeah, pressure all the time. Like I missed a meeting. Where were you? So and it wasn't like I could say, oh, I worked late and, they knew my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
That was tough. So from there, I was playing basketball a lot still. There's another couple in our congregation that had a Bible study who got baptized, and I started. I was friends with him. After he got baptized, we hung out quite a bit. He was a little older than me. He was probably in his late 20s, and I was like 18, 19 at this time. He liked basketball a lot too, so that's where what we had in common. We liked to play basketball together. There was a group of brothers. There was one brother in particular who he was awesome. Like this guy was great because he arranged games for the young people, which was super important for me. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. So he'd call everybody on Saturday morning or Friday night, be like, hey, we're going to play basketball after service Saturday at 1:00 at this school. And that was awesome. So I'd go out in service and then be able to play basketball. So me and this other brother that was the Bible study, we'd play there after service. Well, he ended up moving to another city, like 30 minutes away from where I lived, and found a group of brothers there that rented a school gym, an inside court. So he's like, you got to come down here. So this was every Friday night. They rented this school gym, and you'd come. It was all brothers. You come, leave a couple bucks for the guy who rented it, and you could play, for 2 hours. They had games going on there. So I met a lot of other brothers there. I met this one guy. This is going to be hard to tell the story without like names or something.
You guys do the best you
So I met
can.
this guy, became friends with him.
Use an initial if you
Met
need to.
his family. Yeah, maybe. That won't work though in this situation because
Or a pseudonym, or just say a name. I mean, it's up to you. I'm not
I'll
talking
figure it
about.
out. I'll do my best. I just don't want it to be confusing for you when I'm saying him did this and he did this. Yeah, I'll figure it out. So anyway, I made this new friend at that, playing basketball on Friday nights, and my bosses had a big problem with that too. Me going down there because I worked for them, and I'm kind of at fault, I guess. I come at fault too. I wasn't great at communication with them on Fridays when I was working. They'd send me out to do. They had a lot of contracts with apartment complexes where when somebody'd move out, we'd go and change like the vinyl, the linoleum or carpet or whatever, just kind of update the room. So they'd send me to do something like that on a Friday, and I would bust my ass to get done early, and I'd get done by like lunchtime, and then drive down all the way to where they go play basketball. So, where my friend had moved, hang out with him for the rest of the afternoon until it was time to go play basketball. And then I'd play basketball. So they didn't like that I didn't call them and tell them I was done because they wanted to give me more work after I'd finished what they had planned for me for that day. It was supposed to take me all day. And when I wouldn't call them, they'd get really mad. But I didn't want to call them because I wanted to go play basketball. So that was an issue with them. But it never got resolved because they kept wanting me to call them and I just never did. But so eventually they just kind of left it alone, I guess. So I met a lot of people down there playing basketball. This one family in particular, they had 9 children total, and Most of them were boys, so they were all there at this basketball game.
That's
So I
almost two
met all of
teams.
yeah, I met all the brothers. Um, um, I think there's 5 brothers anyway.
Okay.
So I started hanging out with them. Um, one of them in particular was my age. So we did a lot of stuff together. We'd go snowboarding. We played basketball. I'd go over to their house on the weekend after basketball on Friday night. I'd go to their house, or we'd stop at like a restaurant after basketball and eat dinner, and then go to their house. I'd stay the night at their house like all weekend until I had to go back to work Monday. All this time, not communicating with my parents either, which was terrible. As a parent now, I realize how stupid that was, and how this was this was before cell phones were super popular, or like everyone had one. So I didn't have a cell phone. I still could have found a way to let them know where I was. So I'd be gone like all weekend, and they wouldn't know if I was in a ditch somewhere or what. And I realize that now, but at the time it would just seemed too controlling for me. uh, that's silly. It's like common courtesy now to me. It seems like, especially, I mean, even if you just have a roommate, telling them where you are. So I feel bad about that. But anyway, I digress.
If that's the worst thing you did, I think you're all right.
Yeah, no, that's not the worst thing I did.
Okay. I'm just saying that's it's certainly would have been nice for you to have done. I guess at some point, did you ever tell your parents what you were doing on the weekends?
Yeah, when I would come home Sunday night, I'd come home, um, and they'd be really angry, understandably. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just explain, I wasn't doing anything bad. I went and played basketball Friday night, and then I just stayed at my friend's house for the weekend and hung out. So they just eventually got tired of it, and I need to go back again. I'm sorry, to when I was like probably 18.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still kind of at that age, but anyway, when I was living with my parents, I was dating this girl. She was a sister from another hall. She wasn't like a great witness. Um, uh, so anyway, our relationship kind of progressed. She I started sneaking out at night and going to her house and sleeping with her, when I was like 18, probably 17, 18. I don't know. Anyway, so this happened a couple times. Her and I were the only ones that knew about it. I got home one night, early in the morning before my dad would leave for work, and there's a note on my pillow on my bed said, "We need to talk in the morning." So I'm like, shit, they've, I'm caught. So that whole night I didn't sleep. There, the rest of the morning, I guess I didn't sleep. I was trying to come up with something, excuse or whatever to tell them. So I told my dad that I had gone to the school down the street and was just shooting baskets all night long. I was playing basketball, um, which was a believable thing for them because it wasn't uncommon for me to do stuff like that. I would go to the school down the street and play basketball a lot. So it was a reasonable, explanation to them, I guess. And then so I had this on my conscience, um, I was baptized and I did this thing. It was horrible. I couldn't tell anyone. I had to keep it to myself for the rest of my life. Is the way I felt, or else there'd be huge, consequences. Uh, so I did. Nobody knew about it. My parents, um, believed what I told them. Which I feel really bad about too. but at the time it was kind of a survival, thing.
Well, yeah, we were all put.
I didn't want to get kicked out, and
Right, but
all the consequences from that
sure, you
would have
were
been really
doing normal
bad.
things though that normal people do. Uh,
Yeah, a worldly teenager that did that would, their parents might be disappointed, but they would also realize that they probably did the same thing when they were a teenager, and it's not that big a deal. But for a witness kid to sneak out and have sex with his girlfriend, and it was bad. I knew it was bad.
well, but again, you lying about it, like you said, was survival because the consequences were extreme for what you had done. It's not
Yeah,
like
they didn't match.
yeah, you were going to be shunned and kicked out and all kinds of things. Your God was going to murder you at Armageddon. Like, so yeah, you lied. Of course you did.
Yeah,
Look what you were up against.
yeah, yeah,
It's not normal.
exactly. It didn't match the crime.
No.
Yeah. So back to the future. I'm playing basketball out with the family brother. I had this thing on my conscience still from the past when I was a little younger. I was probably 20-ish now when I was playing basketball out with those guys. So uh, I think the one that I was closest to, he saw a picture or something of my sister that's a year younger than me. And he was shocked that I had a sister. Like I just didn't share things, I guess, with them. I don't know. But he had no idea I had a sister, and he's like, I want to meet her, and he must have liked the picture. I think I had a picture of her in my wallet or something. But anyway, so they met, they started dating. Um, he had been coming over to my parents' house and staying the night with me a couple times, but then my dad said, you can't do that anymore. Um, and I remember my dad having a talk with him and like, what are your intentions type of talk. Uh, so that must have been really uncomfortable for him. And they did get married. They eventually got married. My sister, she broke up with him like once and then got back together. He's a huge narcissist and really manipulative. So when she broke up with him, he did all these crazy things and said crazy things. And I think he probably told her he was going to kill himself or something like that, something along those lines. So I think she felt pressure into getting back together with him.
Yeah, that happens a lot,
I don't
unfortunately.
know this, but it's just from my perspective, that's what it seemed like. Anyway, they got married. She was 19, I think, when they got married, and she got pregnant like right away. So, and I remember her being really upset about that. Like we were in like Babies R Us or something after she found out my mom wanted to buy her some stuff. And she was just sobbing in there the whole time. Like we were in the store and she was just crying because she was 19, just got married, and now is having a baby too. Like it's a lot
With a
all at once.
narcissist.
Yeah. And in a relationship, you probably, I don't know how to put it, just didn't really want to be in, or probably shouldn't have been in, I
Felt
guess. I
trapped
don't
in,
know.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Or coerced into. Um, yeah. But there's a lot of pressure for girls, There's like I remember hearing all the time, there's more sisters than there's brothers and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So sure, she probably thought she was getting old at 19. I remember feeling that way. especially after my sister got married. And then I was like, shit, she's a year younger than me, and I better, start looking around for a wife. I'm getting old, at 20 or 21. So they were married. They had a son. Um, and then I started dating his sister, my brother-in-law. So his sister, who was like 5 or 6 years younger than me, when she was 18. So that was a little later. I was 20. Man, I'm trying to think of the math on that. She was 18. I was 24 ish, somewhere in there. So dated her for a little bit. Then I asked her to marry me. She didn't. She told me she didn't want to get married, but when I asked her, she said yes, and she didn't want to break up. She didn't want to get married, but she didn't want to break up either. But I was feeling pressure, like I'm getting older and we're just stupid. This is when things got kind of rough. I was still working for the two elders that were in my original Kingdom Hall. I had moved down to where they live, where this other family lived, and where my fiance was living. And we got married. So when we were engaged, things were kind of tricky or rough. She broke up with me once while we were engaged, and we got back together. I remember her brothers talking to me and being like, "Are you sure you want to marry our sister?" I'm like, I should have listened to them, or at least taken note of that, but I didn't. And right away after we got married, uh, things were weird to me, or just didn't seem like they should be. Like, for example, she had a hard time with the thought of changing her name. She didn't want to have my last name, and at one point she asked if I would change my name to her last name, and I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And then when we did get married, after we went to Seattle and stayed in a hotel room the night we got married, we came back to the house that I had rented. She did not want to be there at all. Like, she just started crying right away. She wanted to go back to her parents' house. She told me, I want to go back to my mom and dad's. I know, like, is there something wrong with the house? Like, what? I didn't understand that she wasn't excited, to be married, to have our own life now, or, we're just starting out and she's already not happy. And like, instantly.
Because
And that
she
really
didn't want to
shook
do it in the
me.
first place, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, she said she wanted to wait. She wanted to get married, but she said she wanted to wait because she was just barely 18, just like every witness, we get married like as soon as it's legally possible. So she didn't want to be that. I don't think she didn't want to be married right at 18. I think that was the biggest thing for her, for saying she didn't want to get married. But yeah, she wasn't excited about it either. Like, she didn't like the house. It's a tricky situation to explain because her family, they're very close, and they are like a cult inside the cult.
Yes,
If you know
yes.
what I
As
mean.
soon as you said she wanted to go back to her
They're
parents' house,
very they're very, together and tight, and they're popular in the congregation.
Hmm.
They're influential, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
family. But there's a lot of weird dynamics and um, manipulation
Hmm.
and uh, gaslighting. All this stuff goes on in their family, like to each other, and just drama, like all the time. It is crazy. And I was new to all that, when I first started hanging out with them, and it was weird. I fought each other really badly at first. I kind of started thinking maybe, this is just the way they are. I was raised different. It's just the way their family is. They insult each other, but they still love each other. And, that I guess was my mentality. So that's kind of the background of her family. And so when she left that, I guess she didn't like it. So she never really left them. She never really left her parents and started building a family with me. I felt like um, I would, we were married for 1 year. Before that year even was up, um, we had some major problems. So I was working for these two elders. They had these contracts with apartment complexes, like I said. They got this one contract or one job where we were replacing like all of the decks on this, like hundreds of units. So we were there for months. So I got to know like the people that worked in the office, because I had to go in and schedule, the next units that we'd be working on and give them notice, all that kind of thing. I got close with the manager of this apartment complex, who was a woman. Um, she was like, I think she was around 30 at the time. So I was constantly in the office, talking to her about the job, explaining things, telling her which units we were going to be going to, which ones were finished and they could move back in, all these things. I had lunch with her a couple times, just got close to her and started to, talk about personal things with her, about my marriage and how my wife wasn't happy and I was really not happy. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have let myself get that close to someone else, that wasn't my wife. I take responsibility for that, but I also didn't have anyone. She was nice to me, and uh, she listened. She was supportive. She said things like, "You need to stick up for your," things like that that I never thought about before.
She said what?
And
I'm sorry, you cut out there just a second.
she said things like, "You need to stick up for yourself," or,
Ah, gotcha.
telling me you're not being, these people are treating you badly and you don't even realize it. Um, that's another thing I want to bring out too about being raised in this organization and not having any help for mental health or anything, or having anybody to talk to, or trusting your own gut or feelings. So you're raised to be completely unaware of yourself and unaware of your own thoughts even,
Mhm.
and not trust your own thoughts. So when I got involved with their family, I know that I was treated pretty badly, but I put up with it because I didn't know I was being treated badly. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, of course
Like
it makes
I
sense because
wasn't aware enough.
the
Yeah.
gaslighting didn't start with her family. The entire organization of Jehovah's Witnesses is one big gaslighting machine. You're gaslit from the time you're a kid. The
Mhm.
whole teaching, everything they do is about gaslighting you so that you won't believe or trust your own. The heart is treacherous, who can know it? Do not lean upon your own understanding.
Yeah.
You're just a good for nothing slave of Jehovah. I could go on and on, but it's all designed to get you to distrust yourself and your own thoughts and feelings so that you will take on their thoughts and feelings and be controllable. And so you are taught to chase love, to never feel like you're good enough, and to put up with abusive behavior because it's all abusive, Aaron. So her family was probably just a reflection of many other things you had experienced. You just didn't realize it.
Yeah. And they took it to a whole nother level too, like I was, year round gaslighting and things like that, like you said, in your childhood, but then their family just, it was weird and rough. There was some weird drama and dynamics in the family, but
so you're treated poorly, not even, and you don't even know it.
Right. And at this point, I've never heard of gaslighting. I don't even know what that is. Like, that's how unaware of my own, I guess partly it's not having any kind of education in psychology type of things too, that's a big no-no.
They keep you away from all that, right?
You don't know how your own mind and body works, there's a lot of things that go into that, just being unaware of how people treat you or how you treat other people even. So the manager of the apartment, she was telling things that I'd never really heard before, like they're manipulating you, or gaslighting, or different things like that, and kind of making me realize things like that. We got closer, and then I got to feeling like I needed to stick up for myself. Like, I was listening to her. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm kind of being abused a little bit. The biggest thing for me when that, this was in the first year, we were married for like probably 8 months. And then I started to have this relationship. It wasn't a sexual relationship. Just, I got close to her, too closer than I should have, being married. I feel like I cheated, emotionally. So I was wrong about that. I feel bad about that, but she helped me. So eventually I also have this nagging in the back of my conscience of what I did, with my previous girlfriend when I was young. So I came to the point where I had to tell my wife about that. I had to tell her about that I wasn't a virgin when we got married, basically. And I lied about that. I mean, even the elder that gave our talk asked before we got married, is there anything either of you need to tell me before? And I thought about it, and I was like, nope.
Because who would say yes?
Because again, that would have opened a whole can of worms, right?
Right. So,
Then in the future, after we're married for almost a year, I opened the can myself, because it's eating away at me. And then this other woman's telling me to have confidence, to realize that I'm being abused, to realize, or not that I'm being abused, but this is an abusive relationship, I guess. Like, I didn't feel like I was being abused, but anyway.
If it was an abusive relationship, you were probably being abused.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So I tell my wife, I'm a virgin, when we got married, and I tell her about this, the manager. I told her I haven't slept with this woman, but I have kind of a relationship with her. We're really close. So then the elders get involved, obviously. They wanted a meeting with me. My wife moved out like immediately. And had a bunch of my friends and her friends come while I was at work and empty the house. So I came home to one day from work and nothing was left, no furniture, nothing. So then I had an elders meeting. That was really fast. Like this was in the Kingdom Hall that she grew up in, my wife. So they all knew her since she was born. She was raised in also.
And in a popular family.
And her dad is an elder. Her oldest brother, or one of her older brothers, is an elder. One of her other brothers is a ministerial servant. So they're all, in the congregation and well respected, all that. So I'm this newcomer into the family and into the congregation. And I go into this elders meeting. I talked to this woman, the manager, before I went to the elders meeting. I talked to her on the phone, and she was like, I was nervous, scared. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was hoping that they were going to be like loving and help me fix something about me, I guess. Or yeah, I just thought they were going to try to be loving. Or I hope they were. And she was telling me, just be confident and stick up for yourself. Don't let them bully you, that kind of thing. She didn't really understand. She wasn't religious, or a witness, but she didn't really understand how the elders meeting worked or understand even why I had to go. And she's like, why are you even doing this?
Because you shouldn't have to go.
Yeah. She's like, you told your wife
she wasn't
what she needed
a
to tell
victim
her.
of an organization, so she didn't have to, she didn't understand. You had been abused your entire life in this organization. So you were going to do what they wanted you to do.
Yes, these guys were in control of my life, and I had to go, is the way I felt.
Of course.
So I did, and I had this mentality of sticking up for myself, So when I went into it, I told them what I told my wife. They asked me details about my girlfriend, who she was. And at this point, she was long gone. She'd moved and wasn't in the area anymore. And I just lost track of her. I don't know where she was. I told them her name, and they took notes, and that was it. I don't think they really did anything with that, but I told them my story. They asked me if I was going to keep seeing the manager, and I said, yeah, she's my friend and we're close, and we hadn't sex or like that at this point. This was, in my mind, was all about what I had done previously. I had sex with my girlfriend when I was 17. They seemed angry. The elders, there was 3 elders. They never, I don't remember them opening their Bibles at all or showing me a single scripture or anything like that. I got done telling my story. They asked a few questions, and then one elder said, why don't you wait outside the room? We're going to discuss it, and then we'll have you come back in. Another elder said, why do we need to have him wait? We know we already know we're going to disfellowship him. And so at this point, I don't remember if I did actually go out and wait or not. I don't think I did. I think they just said, oh, okay. And then, yeah, you're going to be disfellowshipped. So I was disfellowshipped. I went out, called my dad, told him they disfellowshipped me. And he was like, okay, well, you're still my son. We have to kind of cut off contact a little bit. He didn't completely shun me that time when I was disfellowshipped. I could still call him if I really needed to. And he would answer the phone. I had a surgery scheduled before I was disfellowshipped, and my mom helped me. I was supposed to have somebody drive me. I was on drugs, so they wouldn't let me drive home. So I went and stayed with my parents for like a day or two after I had that surgery. So that at least they did that for me. But after that, after the surgery, my dad said, we can't do this anymore. You can call me if you're really desperate and you need something, but try not to.
Can you feel the love?
Yeah, I felt so loved. It was great. No love.
It's just sad because like
And I still work with two elders too.
you
So
still what?
they had to decide if I still worked for two elders too.
Oh, that's right.
So
That's
they
right.
had to decide if they were going to keep me or not. So they let me keep working. And then one of them came to me and said, we had contacted the circuit overseer, and he said that we didn't need to fire you. So you can keep working for us. But, and you know how witnesses are, they all work with each other. So my bosses were like general contractors, and they would hire other witness subcontractors all the time. So they told me, if we have any other brothers on our job sites, you need to tell them that you're disfellowshipped and they can't talk to you. So it was my responsibility to tell anyone that I was on a job site with that I was disfellowshipped, which was really.
Can you see the manipulation in all this?
Yeah.
Like
I do now.
Yeah, like making you tell them that you're disfellowshipped. It's like making you shame yourself every time you're around somebody, or saying like the circuit overseer said that we can allow you to stay. It's like so that you'll almost feel grateful or thankful, or even like your parents helping you after your surgery. Sure, that's nice of them, but it's kind of what you're supposed to do as parents. You don't get Parents of the Year award because you didn't shun your kid while he had surgery. Like, these are very minimal requirements for any relationship, and they're not. They're certainly giving you the minimum at best. But they make you feel like you're so low that you should be so appreciative of any little crumb or morsel they throw you, because they make you so hungry and so thirsty.
Yeah. And I did feel that way.
Of course.
Definitely.
Part of the manipulation.
And especially when my bosses said that they could keep me, I was like, oh man. Because I had no idea what I was going to do if they were going to fire me. I was thankful for that.
They make you thankful for the crumbs they throw you.
Yeah.
Allow me to break in here for a second. This channel is made possible by you, the listener. If you appreciate what we're doing here, please consider supporting at patreon.com/shunned, or leave a review on iTunes or other platforms. Like and subscribe. All those things help the channel. If you're looking for merch, you can go get some Shun swag from the shunnedpodcast.com website, or reach out there to be on the show. If you're looking for more ex-Jehovah's Witness content, I'll recommend my first podcast called This JW Life. You can find that on podcast apps as well as YouTube. And if you're feeling stuck in life, struggling to find happiness and community, maybe you're haunted by the past, beating yourself up, unsure of who you are or what you even want out of life now that you've lost this one identity that was given to you by a cult, reach out through my other sites like exjwhelp.com, that's exjwhelp.com, or storyworkscoaching.com. And let's see about working together to help you find a life that fits you and who you are, maybe for the first time ever. And now, back to our guest.
But at the same time, it kept me in a state of just complete aloneness, because at this point I was disfellowshipped. I lived in this empty house, all alone.
Literally empty, right?
literally empty. Like I didn't have a bed to sleep on. I was sleeping on the floor. And at the time, I felt I deserved it. You know,
Part of the manipulation.
I did some bad things, so I deserved it. You know, I deserved everything that was being given to me.
Nope.
Yeah, just the aloneness of that was, it's hard to explain. You know, I didn't have worldly coworkers. I didn't have any other family. I lived in this empty house completely by myself. The elders at my elders meeting, they said, we suggest you go to a different kingdom hall. They asked me what I was going to do. And I said, I'm going to come to the meetings. I'm going to come back. Got to get back. And they said, well, we suggest you go to a different kingdom hall. So I did. I switched kingdom halls. I didn't stop going to the meetings. The relationship with the manager girl, it did get sexual after I got disfellowshipped for a short time, and then it just fizzled out. And after that job was done, plus my bosses knew about it then too, so they kind of kept me away from that job a little bit. But yeah, and my one boss talked to me. He's like, I don't blame you. She's really gorgeous and stuff like that. But it was weird.
I don't blame you, but I'm going to shun you.
Yeah, exactly. But they could talk to me because they were elders, you know?
Oh, yeah. They're special.
Yeah. When it suited them, right?
Of course.
Yeah. When I could make them money, they could.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They didn't want to lose you. They also, I don't know how you were, if you were an employee for them or what, but you know, like locally, there's a brother who had owned a business called Lawn Cure, and they would, they serviced a bunch, it was a lawn service that sprays your lawn for weeds and pests, things like that.
Okay.
And, they would hire brothers, but they only hired brothers on annual contracts. That way, if you got disfellowshipped, because they can't really, it's hard for them to fire you, or it's real shady for them to fire you for a religious reason like that, and nothing to do with the job performance. And I know they can get in trouble for that, so they would keep you on annual contracts. So if you got disfellowshipped within that year or whatever, they just wouldn't renew your contract. So they could always just let you go at the end of the contract. They were just playing the system.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's shady. That's like premeditated.
Yeah, it's premeditated. They know what they're doing. Wow. They're not dumb.
Yeah, I guess I'm lucky that I didn't get fired. But I don't know. I don't know how it would have turned out. But anyway.
Sure.
So it was really rough. I moved to New Kingdom Hall, having to go to a congregation. The very first time I went there, I had to pick out an elder and tell him my situation. And that elder, the one that I found, he was the one I talked to, the rest of the time, when I turned in my letter and all that stuff.
Your letter to try to get reinstated?
Yeah. Later on down the road.
Right.
It was the same brother, but that was so rough, man. Living by myself, completely alone, no family, no friends. I felt worse than a worldly person at that point. And I know
you
that
are to them.
Sounds weird to people that haven't been a Jehovah's Witness, I guess, but
because it is weird.
It is weird. It's kind of a no man's land, or a
man on an island.
I just felt like there was nothing worse than me. Even worldly people can have friends and family, and I had nothing.
Part of the gaslighting.
Tough. Yeah, to make you
to weaponize things that are near and dear to you, to weaponize and extort you through your family and your relationships It's part of
Hmm.
gaslighting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was so tough, man. I would come home from work. You know, the one positive thing about being disfellowshipped is I picked up the guitar
Mm.
because I needed something. You know, I was playing basketball, but even then I didn't get to play as much as I used to because this whole group of people that I was able to go to this rented gym and play, and you know, all that was gone too. So if I did play, it was by myself, um, at a school or a park. So I wasn't getting much therapy from that at the time. That was my outlet. So, but it was seriously reduced at the time. So I picked up the guitar. I was like, I can teach myself to play the guitar. I've got plenty of time. Um, so that was a positive thing about it. But other than that, it was so rough.
Well, and you
On
didn't
the
need to be
weekend,
disfellowshipped to learn to play the guitar.
no, I
You could have
didn't.
had that
It just
positive
gave
without the
me,
negative.
yeah, yeah. I guess I'm just trying to think positively. But anyway, the the guitar was good. I would come home on the weekends were the roughest because I just had nothing to do for
Sure.
2 days. So, I mean, I had to go to the meeting on Sunday, but so Friday night I would uh, take sleeping pills like a Tylenol PM or something like that, and I'd sleep all night. And when I'd wake up in the morning, I would take more and just sleep. I just would sleep all weekend. As soon as I woke up, I'd just take more sleeping pills and go back because I just couldn't be awake and think about things anymore. Um, and sleep, it's easier to be alone when you're sleeping, you know?
Yeah, well, you're escaping it all, right? It's like
Uh,
basketball was quote therapy,
yeah,
but it's not really
yeah,
therapy, it's escape. And it's not really
yeah.
addressing the issues, it's escaping from the issues.
And really, basketball, yeah, yeah. And basketball, really, the thing it does is just give me time to think.
Sure.
So, and I probably didn't want that at the time. You know, I didn't need time alone with my thoughts at that time. That would probably be a bad thing. So I think 5 months went by, and I wrote a letter. Right away after I got this fellowship, my dad was like, "You need to take this time to rebuild your relationship with Jehovah, um, do some personal study, and get right, and then, you know, turn this into a positive thing for you, and make it so you come back better than before." So I took that to heart, um, and I did that. I studied a lot. I wanted back in really bad. And then the more I studied, the more guilty I felt about what I did and how I treated my wife. I started writing letters to her too to apologize. Uh, I was in a really bad place, uh, like mental health wise. And I feel like just such a glutton for punishment. I wanted her back. I felt I did everything wrong. If I was a better husband and a better spiritual head, it would have been fine. Everything would have been fine. So I really tried hard when I was disfellowship. You know, I made every single meeting. I didn't miss a single meeting, not one. I studied for every single one. Um, Sat in the very back, in the back school, you know, the disfellowship people's room, and um, it was so awkward. It was so awkward walking in there and then out of there. People just looking at you like out of the side of their
Like you're a
eyes, and
ghost.
yeah, there was one brother that I knew at this new Kingdom Hall that I had switched to. Um, and every once in a while, he'd walk behind me and just kind of tap me on the shoulder or something like that. And that, just that one um, thing, that small thing was so huge to me then. Just him showing that little bit of support was crazy. Man, it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah, they want it to be hard. The prodigal son returns and is immediately accepted by his father. You come back to all the meetings and have to grovel and write letters and be made to feel alone and be psychologically tortured in order to try to control you for the next time.
Yeah. Yeah,
It is
I think it's
psychological
designed that
torment.
way, right? Yeah, it's designed it that way. And I remember something my dad said too was, disfellowshipping is the perfect discipline. And I guess in a way it kind of is. It either makes you go back or leave. It makes you super feel super guilty or not. I guess I don't know.
Do you?
I
Well,
just
let me
him
ask you,
saying that to
Aaron.
me.
Aaron, you have kids today. If your kids
No,
lie to you
I
or
mean
something,
for them, you
do you,
know.
yeah. I was gonna say, do you shun them because it's the perfect discipline? Like it's emotional blackmail. It's
Yeah.
emotional extortion.
Yep.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the perfect discipline for them.
Yes,
Uh,
that's what I mean. For the
yeah. But it
organization.
is. It is. Well, and actually, that's not even true. Do you know how many people come back to Jehovah's Witnesses just because they miss their families? They don't come back because they
Yeah.
love Jehovah. They come back because the relationships are used as a weapon against them. And then they go back and then they end up fading away or whatever the case may be a lot of times because they only came
Yeah.
back for their family. It's not about Jehovah. It's got nothing to do with God.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant. It's the perfect
Yeah,
thing for them, for the organization.
I
Um,
guess. I
just
think you
gives
could do
them
it a lot more
power. It
loving
gives them
and get a
power.
lot more people back for the right reasons if you actually had right reasons and were concerned about any of that,
Hmm.
which they
Yeah,
don't.
you're right. Yeah, but um, yeah, where was I? Um,
So
oh,
they've
so
got
I
you really
was
low.
this fellowship. Yeah, super
This
low.
brother touches you and it affects you emotionally because
Hmm.
they've treated you worse than a leper.
Hmm. Yeah. So 5 months of this goes by of me just struggling and in misery. And so I write a letter. I've been studying a lot. I write a letter and explaining that, I've been really studying all of what I felt guilty about, what I did wrong. I put all this stuff in my letter. Um, and I gave it to that brother at the Kingdom Hall. I was like, I don't know, if this is too soon or what, but I feel like I'm repentant now. I feel like I've been studying. And so I give him the letter. He says, okay, I'll contact the elders over at your old congregation and, we'll see what they want to do. So I was excited about that. Some feeling of hope, that this might end soon. And then a month goes by. I'm not missing any meetings. Um, I think probably 2 months went by and I was like, maybe I should just say something to him, just remind him. Maybe he forgot to give them the letter. I didn't know what was going on. So I asked him at the next meeting. Um, he's like, yeah, I sent the letter over to the other congregation and they called me and said they didn't remember you. And they didn't think that you ever went to their Kingdom Hall. And I was like, what? That's weird. There's no way they forgot me. This was a big deal. Like when this happened, this was a big deal. How did they forget this? It wasn't even a year ago. So he's like, okay, I'll go back and I'll check again. And then I think another 2 months went by, and I thought the same thing. Like, I'm going to check in one more time, see what's going on. And I think at that one he said something like he hadn't heard back from them yet. He would call them again, and then pretty soon after that, he called and said that they wanted to have a meeting. So I went back and had another meeting with them. So total, after I turned in my letter, I think it was another 4 or 5 months until I finally got a meeting with them.
More
The
manipulation.
whole time in complete misery and alone and completely lonely.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Aaron. You didn't deserve that. That this is just more of the manipulation and the torture to make you
Yeah,
try
and
to
just
break
not
you.
knowing when it was going to end. You know,
Yes. Sad.
and if they could, I remember talking to my dad, calling him on nights when I was really, really desperate, and like asking him what's going on, why, asking him to explain this to me. And he couldn't explain it. He just, said, you just have to be patient. And yeah, that was probably harder than the first 5 months, just the not knowing. And my dad told me, they can't keep you out. They can't do this forever. They can't keep you out. They have to reinstate you if you're repentant. So I felt that way. I thought he was right, but then, they kept dragging their feet, it seemed like. So I had to meet back with those guys. That was humiliating. And yeah, because they
What's the
still had that
purpose of
same
it?
attitude, you know,
They
and I
what?
had to go back, and they still had that same attitude
Oh.
they had at the first meeting. And I had to go back and basically grovel,
Mm-hmm.
in front of them and cry. And they said, well, I guess, we can reinstate you. And they suggested I keep going to that other Kingdom Hall and not move back to this one, which I did for a while. So I did get reinstated. Um, I got back in contact with my ex, or she had divorced me at this point. Um, that was pretty quick after I got disfellowshipped. One of her brothers came over with papers and had me sign them. uh, so we kind of started dating again. Um, Unfortunately, I I could say I regret it, but I don't regret it because we had 2 boys after that. So we got back together. We got remarried. The dating again was weird because, we had already been married, and to have a chaperone and stuff again was just odd.
It's all
But
control.
anyway, yeah. So we got remarried. Oh, wait, 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 wait. I need to go back again. Sorry. So in between the time where I was reinstated, it was just after I was reinstated. Um, I think we were kind of dating with my ex. Uh, I was living in this house that I had rented still. And my, it was in 2003, I think November 2003. She called me again early in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I get a phone call, and it's my mom. And she's like, you need to get to the hospital. Your dad, we think he might have had a heart attack in the middle of the night. And he woke up and said it felt like somebody stabbed him in the chest. So we're going to the hospital. You need to get here as quick as possible. So my sister and her husband come pick me up, and we drive to Seattle to the hospital. And we get there, and he's in a room, uh, and had some tests and stuff in the meantime. And they figured out that he had a birth defect in his heart that he never knew about. And it was one of his artery or one of his valves in his heart was somehow had a birth defect. So over time, it got swollen and it damaged other like large arteries that go from that valve. So it was like a tube, that just is stretched out and it was about to burst. It was like thin on one side, his artery. So they said, if it bursts, it's going to kill him like instantly. And that's what that stabbing pain was that artery like stretching and almost tearing. So they said, we can do surgery or you can live and, you could live for a few years longer. We don't really know, but we can repair it with surgery. But they were very concerned about doing it without blood, a heart surgery without blood. But the doctor agreed to try it. He even talked to some of the doctors and lawyers that the society suggested to give him some tips or, some alternative therapies or something. I don't know what they told him, but he talked to them. So the doctor was really good. Being in the hospital was scary, man. I remember praying that time too. And like I did when my sister got hit by the car and thinking that it was all going to be fine, just like with my sister. I prayed and she did okay. But they took him. So they gave our family a choice and my dad a choice. They said, you could do the surgery or not do the surgery. And then the doctor came back later and said, I realized I didn't really give you any like numbers to think about or anything like that. So he said, if you do the surgery, we give you, without blood, we give you 10% chance of surviving. So that's not good. And if you don't do the surgery, we have no idea. You could die later today. You could die tomorrow. There's no way of knowing, but it will kill you eventually. So he decided to do the surgery. We were all in his room. We got to talk to him before he went into the surgery. He said, me and my ex were re-engaged again at this point. So he knew we were going to get remarried. And he said, I'm glad you guys have gotten back together. It's good that you have made up and whatever. And then a nurse came in, like everybody was in the room, not everybody, but our immediate family, my mom and all my siblings, except for my oldest brother. So when he was 18 and he left, he moved to Georgia. So he was really far away. So he didn't make it to the hospital before the surgery. So everyone was there except him. The doctor, a nurse came in and gave him something in his IV, and he started to get sick, like he's nauseous, and the machine started beeping, and like stuff was happening, and we all started freaking out. We thought this was it, like he was dying, because the doctors told us at any moment it could just burst. So we all ran out of the room and were yelling for the nurses. And that was the last time we talked to him. So they took him straight from there, rolled him into the surgery. We went into the waiting room and the doctor came out intermittently during the surgery, like every few hours, every couple hours, maybe, to give us like an update, what was going on. They said, the first update, they said, everything's going great. We have it partially repaired. They took a piece from his leg or something of artery to repair the almost ruptured section, or I don't know what they did, but anyway, they had it repaired, and the blood hadn't been an issue yet. So they were they were excited about that or happy about that. So then he comes back again, like a couple hours later, and said, we got everything repaired and then it tore more. So it almost ruptured again, like lower down. So it's like, we have to go and start over and repair another section, like farther down of this vein artery. So the surgery took like twice as long as it was supposed to. That repaired. They didn't need to do any blood. There was elders there in the waiting room with us. And I remember asking one of the elders that was in there was my boss. I asked him to say a prayer for all of us because I thought that was necessary or would help. And the doctor came back and said, we are having a hard time getting his heart to start again. He's like, after such a long time out of your body and like artificially working, sometimes it's hard to get it going again back inside your body. So that was the problem. So he said, I'm going back again. We're going to try for a little while longer, but it's not looking good. So he came back again, a couple hours later and said that they lost him. They just couldn't get his heart pumping again on its own. It was on a machine too long and it just wouldn't start again. So they didn't have an issue with the blood. The surgery took way too long.
Sure.
So we were devastated.
No, that's tough. I'm sorry.
I didn't think that could happen, because I prayed. I just didn't think it was possible. But then we had to deal with that, and that was kind of the end of our family. I feel like he was the one that held us all together.
Yeah, he was the glue.
So after that, there was a lot of support from the congregation. The typical kind of support when something like that happens, they bring food, and my brother finally made it from Georgia just after he died. They another thing, the doctors all asked us all if we wanted to go see him, and I didn't want to. I didn't want that to be sorry.
No, it's all right. It's a tough thing.
I didn't want to remember him like that.
Sure. Many people feel that way.
Yeah, that wasn't, I didn't want that to be the last image of him that I had in my head. So my older brother made it back the next day. And we were all at the house, at my mom's house. And elders came there. And my older brother, at this point had faded from the religion. And he had gotten married when he was younger too. And both him and his wife left the organization. And so he wasn't in it anymore. And the elders that were there at the house knew that he wasn't a witness anymore. One elder commented to him, to my older brother, said, did you get here in time? Did you get to talk to your dad before he died? And my brother said, no, I just got here this morning. And he was like, oh, that's a shame. That's probably the last time you would ever have gotten to talk to him. And my brother got so angry.
It's a hateful thing to say to somebody.
Yeah, he just had to leave. He walked out of the house, and that was horrible thing to say. But I know in his mind, he just was, I don't know. It wasn't a horrible thing to say for him because he believed it, you know.
Well, but
anyway,
again, that's part of the weaponizing of relationships. Sometimes to say awful things like that to try to make somebody feel guilty and come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if it's not too late. If you come back, maybe you can see him again when he's resurrected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really rough. So my brother was really upset. We were all really upset, and this happens also while my uncle was still in prison. So my uncle, my one uncle committed suicide. The other one went to prison. Then his other brother died in surgery. Like his wife OD'd and died. He had like 3 family members gone while he was in there, and it was I always thought about that. It was really sad. He was at my dad's memorial. They gave him permission to come to that, so he was there in the audience at a Kingdom Hall in an orange jumpsuit and chains, with wow. Two U.S. Marshals like sitting next to him. It was kind of different to see in a Kingdom Hall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I can't imagine, like from his perspective, like losing most of your family while you're in prison. That sucks. Then, so where do we go from here? I got remarried a few months later, I think. Things didn't change from the first time, really. I tried harder to be more spiritual, to be a better head, I guess, of the family.
Because that's what makes for happy families.
Because that's what was wrong the first time, that's what the problem was.
Well, that's what they make you think is wrong, as though that's what it is that makes two people compatible.
Right. Yes. I remember my bosses, so both of them had a lot of conversations with me over the years. When in the morning, when we'd be driving to work or home or on our way home, I remember one time him saying, any two people can be married if they both worship Jehovah and follow his laws. Any two people. And I guess I kind of thought that was true at the time, so yeah. And now that's just ridiculous. I think about that as completely ridiculous.
It's absurd.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
They think that you should find a marriage mate based on their meeting attendance, their field service participation, these spiritual qualities. But like, do you get along? What are your communication styles? What are your love languages? How the two of you mesh as individuals? I mean, it's so dumb.
Not to mention like compatibility sexuality. You're not allowed to explore that at all until it's too late, basically.
Yeah.
Until you're locked in.
Mm-hmm.
So
just like getting people baptized in the organization, you don't know what it's all about until it's too late.
Yeah. They don't tell you the negative stuff. So yeah, we're remarried. Just a little bit of the situation, like I think we were married for another 6 years after that.
Mm.
But I came close to being a ministerial servant at one point, right toward our second marriage. But our whole marriage, she never spent much time at our house. Like during this time, I was framing houses, building houses from foundation up. So I built a house for us with her brothers. We all pitched in, and we built a house. So we had a brand new house. Um, and she was almost never there. She was always at her parents' house.
As you're supposed to leave your father and mother and cleave to your
Yes, and
spouse.
I would use that. I not use that, but I would bring that up and say, what about this scripture? I that was my biggest complaint with our marriage with her, and our biggest fight for me on my side was that you don't want to be here. You're never here. I'd come home from work and she'd be at her parents' house till 9 or 10 o'clock at night and then come home. And most of the time, I would come home from work, shower and change, and then go to her parents' house to hang out. We never had any time, just the two of us at our house. Very little. We just go there to sleep, and then that was about it.
Just so you know, that's not, well, I don't want to act like it's common, but there are a lot of people who are basically in the cult of their family.
Yeah.
In my coaching
Oh,
practice, sometimes that
okay.
comes up where people were married to someone like that. And I'll say, there were times when Jenny and I were first married that I worried that we would go visit her parents and she wouldn't come back home with me. She always did,
Oh, yeah.
but I was
Yeah.
worried that she wouldn't at times because
Mm.
I used to call it the voodoo mind hold they had over her. Because
Mm.
I realized something was wrong. I had no language for such back then. I was still
Yeah.
just a young witness, but we would go over there and I was like, you're a different person. And like, you change when we come over here. And then I would feel like it would take a few days to get her back when we would come back home. Like it took her a few days to come back to the person that I knew
Yeah.
because yeah, there's relational dynamics there are a lot of people that feel like a kid when they go back home to their parents' house, and
Mhm.
old dynamics can set in. That can happen anywhere, but there's a lot of little cults inside of the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses, little family cults, and
Yeah.
the pull is very real and very strong,
Yeah.
difficult to
Yeah.
break
And
away from.
so there was a lot of fights about that.
Sure,
Um,
you're not alone.
she on her side, she wanted me to be more um, in the congregation than I felt was natural for me or that I wanted to be, um, which had reached to be a ministerial servant when I probably wouldn't have otherwise. It was to kind of appease her, to try to make things go smoothly. I just never really wanted to reach out for stuff like that. Honestly, I was content to just kind of go along, get my close to 10 hours as I could, and be on the school, I guess, and that was it. But um, the other things. So we had our first son in 2006. Um, she wanted to hold off. Her mom really wanted her to have kids. So her mom and I guess, kind of convinced her to have a kid, have a baby. I really wanted to have kids. So we had a son, and things were good. Then I was super excited to have a son, to be a father. It was it was a good pregnancy. And like I said, I was excited, all that. So we had our first son, everything was good. And then 2 years later, we're fighting a lot more again. Sex was also kind of an issue with us, because she just, I feel like she didn't want it or need it as much as I did, which is why I talk about sexual compatibility, with, and finding that out before you marry somebody, because not everyone's the same.
Well, of course not.
Some
But
people are
Aaron,
completely, yeah,
they repress people's sexuality, and a lot of people
yeah,
shut down sexually because they've been shamed sexually their whole lives, while
hmm,
other people sometimes become hypersexual. Uh,
yeah,
Growing up in that abusive environment, and Jehovah's Witnesses are abusive, I will also say they're abusive sexually, because you can't shame human sexuality and tell people it's dirty at every turn and it's awful. And then
yeah,
suddenly people are supposed to turn it on their wedding night. Like, again,
hmm,
there are some people who become very, very shut down sexually. And then there are other people who become very hypersexual. And that's the normal reaction to an abnormal set of circumstances and environment that we were all raised in.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and so I think we were both on the opposite ends of the spectrum of that.
Sure,
So,
lots of couples are in the
that
organization.
was yeah, that was a fight we had sometimes. Um,
Sure.
you know, from my point of view. Um, so a lot of times when I'd come home from work, she'd say, "We need to talk," and that usually meant something bad, and that we were going to be fighting all night long, and till probably early in the morning. So it got to where anytime she'd say that, I just automatically like, "Oh shit, what did I do now?" Type of thing. So one day I come home and she says that as soon as I walk in the door, "We need to talk." And I kind of lost it, I think. Um, I'm like, "What did I do now? You know, what's wrong?" And she throws a pregnancy test at me in my face and says, "I'm pregnant, you asshole." So this is her way of telling me we're having another baby. So that completely took the excitement and like happiness out of having another child,
It's
being
not like
pregnant
you're
again.
bringing the child into a happy home anyway.
Yeah. But she knew that I would react that way if she said that. I feel like she did that on purpose. Um, and I don't know why, if it was just to steal the joy or of the moment, or maybe it was just because we were not really in a good place, and now she's pregnant, so that was probably on her mind also. So my second son, the whole pregnancy was just kind of rough and not happy. I don't actually even remember that much of her second pregnancy because of everything that was going on. At this point, I had started a business also with her brother, or my brother, well, my sister's husband, that brother-in-law. So me and him were working together. And like I said, he's a complete narcissist and was in complete control of the business. I had to do everything he said when he said it. He had to be in complete control of what was going on in our work. So I had that going on also in the background, and the problems with my wife, who was his sister. Um, it's just a lot of stuff compounded on top of me, I feel like. Um, and I was getting overwhelmed. I was some responsibilities in the congregation too. I was running microphones and helping out with the sound thing. And the circuit overseer came and they recommended me to be a servant. And he said, no, let's wait until my next visit. If he's still doing good, then we can appoint him a servant. And that I'm so happy that they didn't at that time. I'm really happy because after that, it just really fell apart. Like I decided I couldn't really take it anymore. Things were getting really rough with work. He was super controlling, and then I was getting super controlled at home by my wife.
Yeah, I was wondering. You kept talking about him being super controlling and a narcissist, and I was wondering
it was the
if
whole family.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, like we'd be at work, we'd stop for lunch. I'd at Burger King or something, and I'd buy lunch, and she would call me within like 10 or 15 minutes and be like, what did you spend $10 at Burger King on? And I was like, I had lunch.
What do you think I bought at Burger King?
Are you watching our account in real time? What the hell? Just that kind of like mentality she had, wanting to be in control of everything, like and money. Yeah, it's crazy. I just got to the point I couldn't take it anymore. So at this time, also my sister and her husband, my business partner, they were having some troubles too, and my sister ended up moving out. She left him and got an apartment of her own, and she went back to school to be a physical therapist assistant or something like that. So I was like super proud of her. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. She's like taking control of her life. So that kind of, I think, empowered me a little bit. And I decided I was going to leave too at the same time. Like this had been building up for a long time, because I was really worried about my sons. I didn't want to leave and not ever be able to see them again. And I was afraid of what she would do if we got divorced, because I
Because they're
knew that
controlling.
what she was capable of. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I knew what she was capable of. So I did. I moved back and stayed with my mom. I told her I was going to stay with my mom for a little bit and see, how things go. And so I did that for a while. I ended up, we would talk on the phone, try to work things out. And I decided to come back. I just was so concerned about my sons. Like that was my biggest concern, was getting a divorce and not seeing them again. Or, I just didn't know. I didn't know what to expect. And I knew she would go to any length to keep them away from me anyway. So I decided to go back. And the night that I went back, I got to the house, and she hands me my youngest son, and she's like, I'm going out with my sister. And I was like, what? She's like, I had this planned already. I didn't know you were coming back. And so she just didn't seem like she cared at all, whether I was there or not. And so I don't know if it was the next day or if it was right then, but I was like, I just decided I was done. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it anymore. But I had been agonizing over it for a long time. So I was living with my mom, still going to the meetings with her. I had also quit working with my brother-in-law. I told him I couldn't do that anymore and left. So I went back to work for one of those elders that I had worked for before, who was in my mom's congregation. So I was going to the meetings with her, and he was there too. This time, I think my grandfather got sick. My mom's dad, he had cancer, and he ended up passing away. So we spent a lot of time. He lived down in Georgia where my brother lived. So we spent a lot of time down there just before he died. And I got to talk to my uncle, my mom's brother-in-law. And he had been an elder for years. And I don't know what position, but he held a high position as an elder because they would send him to other congregations when there was really serious and really messed up things that happened. So he knew, and he was disfellowshipped at this point. He had left also. So I talked to him a lot when we were down in Georgia. And he told me every fucked up thing that happens in the world happens in this organization too. It's like, it's no different than any other religion. So that really opened my eyes, kind of, but still I wasn't awake. So I decided I was going to leave the organization too. So when I got back from Georgia, my mom had heard about it. She was like, I hear you're leaving the truth, she said. And I said, it's not the truth. I don't think it's the truth. I said, it's just another religion. And I don't believe in it anymore. And I thought I could just fade, but the fact that I still was married, that was an issue. You can't really
it's gonna be a difficult fade.
Yeah, you can't. I learned you can't fade if you're still connected. Especially to her and her family.
Sure.
They wouldn't let that happen.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and other things over the years built up about the organization that, things my dad said that when I was real young, I remember him telling me that God doesn't change. Jehovah doesn't change. His requirements for us don't change. And I started seeing changes as I got older. The biggest one, the first one that I saw was when they changed the meeting, like the book study. I don't know why that was a big thing to me, but I just stuck in my head what my dad said, that Jehovah doesn't change. Why are we changing the meetings, and why are we changing things? We shouldn't need to. So that was weird to me, but it still didn't wake me up. So trying to kind of shorten this. I know we've been going for a while. Living with my mom, I told her I was going to leave the organization. So I moved in with one of my mom's cousins, who is like a mom to me now. And she helped me out a lot. I knew from the first time that I was disfellowshipped that I had to completely change my life. I knew if I was leaving the organization, I had to make all new friends and family. Yep. I already had that mentality in my head. I knew I have to make new friends and all new family. So my mom's cousin, who at this time had left also, she was a witness when she was younger, but wasn't anymore. So I lived with her and her husband. And the boys, my sons, would visit me on the weekend, every other weekend. We still weren't divorced. But then I met my wife now, and we started dating. She didn't like the fact that I was still married, which, is understandable. I
Sure.
just was afraid to even bring that up to divorce. I was really scared of what she was going to do, what my ex was going to do. So I contacted my ex and I said, I want a divorce. We need to get divorced. And this was probably 2 years maybe after I had um, left her and left the organization. Um, and then kind of all hell broke loose again once I asked for a divorce or told her I wanted a divorce.
What'd she
Then,
think was gonna happen? You all hadn't been together for 2 years, right?
yeah. And I don't know why I thought I could fade. That was kind of a stupid thought looking back. 'Cause
Well, I
there
don't.
was no
I
way.
think people
There was
think they
no
can
way.
fade because they don't want to face the consequences of not fading.
Yeah.
So I think everybody originally thinks, "Hey, I can probably fade," but I mean, most faders end up shunned eventually anyway. I mean,
Right.
it's
Basically, it probably was my sons. I
sure
wanted to quit because I didn't want to lose them. I already
right.
had in my mind that I was going to lose everyone else.
Well, we're
Because I knew
desperate. We
from the first
believe
time.
just about anything.
Yeah, yeah. I knew from the first time that I was, no one would back
Tough.
me up.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that led me out, that was one of the last straws, was talking to my boss, who was an elder.
Mm.
When I was separated from my wife and living with my mom, I was working with him again and having to drive around with him again in his car to work. And he was talking to me about divorce and everything that was going on. And he said to me, um, if you're not going to the meetings and you're not being seen at the Kingdom Hall and doing what you're supposed to do there, no one's going to be able to support you in court and say that you're a good father and um, like be a character witness or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck? That just made me really angry. It made me really angry. And I was like, what does that have to do with me being a good dad? But it also made me angry because I was starting to see it too. Like, even my mom was starting to say things to me that I know she heard from my ex-wife, and that I knew she was talking to her and taking her side and starting to
Mhm.
believe my ex-wife because I wasn't going to meetings. And that was the only reason why, because I decided not to be a witness anymore. She was switching sides to my ex, or to my wife's side, and believing everything that she said. And oh man, I missed some stuff too, but whatever. I was thinking about therapy, like marriage counseling. So just before I left my wife, she said, I think we should talk to somebody. And I was all for that. I was like, yeah, let's get some help. I'm okay with that. I didn't know that she meant from the elders.
Yeah, that's
I thought she meant
yeah,
I thought
of
she
course
meant
you
real
did.
help.
Yeah.
So we did have meetings with the elders before I left, and they were not helpful at all. They might have been helpful for her, but that's because everything was blamed on me again. Um, these were again the brothers that she grew up with. So everything was blamed on me, and I was told that I wasn't the proper head. And yeah, I brought up issues that I had, and those were just like blown over. They didn't matter. And one elder even came to my house by himself to have a meeting with me personally. My wife wasn't there. And I told him things that my wife said, and he was like, I know her, and she would never say those things. And I just kind of threw my hands up
Yeah,
in the
man,
air
you
and I
were
was like, why are you
screwed.
even here?
You were
Why are you even
totally
here?
screwed.
Yeah, I just felt like, why are you even here? Why'd you come here if you don't believe anything that I say? So yeah, that led me out too. um, but man, it wasn't until much later that I really woke up. So I've been out. That was 13 years ago, like 2009, when my wife and I split up.
Is that right?
That'd be 13 years.
Yeah. It was 2009. Anyway, how many years it is? It was 2009. So then I asked for the divorce, right? That was 2 years later. So we had this arrangement of me picking up the boys every other weekend, having them for the weekend, bringing them back Sunday night. So this Sunday night, I bring them back. I get out of the car to let the boys out to meet with their grandpa picks them up. And as soon as I get out, the grandpa comes up to me and he's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then two elders come up behind him. So they followed him to our meeting spot and confronted me, like ambushed me in front of my two little boys, which made me really angry. They had been calling me before, like right when we first split up, and I just didn't answer their phone calls. They wanted to have meetings with me. And, because of what happened before when the elders told me, I know her, she would never say those things. I had no reason to talk to them. I had no reason to talk to them.
But they wanted to talk to you.
Yeah, they wanted to disfellowship me again is what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's what they wanted. So where was I? Damn it. Let me go back a little bit again. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
So when another really low time I wanted to kind of tell you about, when I had left, I went to see the boys very much. This was before we set up our arrangement, just to get them every other weekend. I was living with my mom and my sister. So when my sister left her husband and got the apartment, they stopped making their house payment, or her husband stopped making his house payments. And he eventually ended up moving into her apartment with her, and they got back together. And they're still together. So that's frustrating to me because she almost got out. I feel like she almost got out and then just went right back. Let him back in.
But isn't this the pattern? We're taught to do that. You left the witnesses, you went back.
Yeah, I did.
You left your wife, you went back. That's part of that's an outcome of the abuse. Many people end up going back to their abusers because we know how to live. We know how to live that life. We know what we can even be comfortable in that abuse to some degree because that's what we know. In fact, for a lot of us, a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, it can be hard to live in a healthy environment because that feels so foreign. It's intimidating and scary.
Yeah.
We know chaos and abuse and gaslighting.
Yeah. They seek that stuff out subconsciously because that's the way they were raised.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry to hear.
So their house was empty. The house that they had lived in was empty. So my youngest brother and I moved from my mom's house to this empty house, basically abandoned house that they weren't paying for. And they started charging us rent to live in their empty house that they weren't paying for. So,
oh my gosh, yes.
This caused a fight with my sister one day. She called me and wanted the rent, and I was like, why? I don't have a problem paying the rent, but you shouldn't be like relying on this. You're not even making the house payment. What's the big deal? I know I said I'd pay you, but she was freaking out. And she did say, I am relying on that money. And it just got into a huge fight. And I was like, I wonder what your bank would think if I called them and told them you're renting the house out that you're not paying for. So that was, an ordeal. So anyway, I'm staying in this empty house with my brother. with a lot of alone time and time with my thoughts again, and just stress and worried about not seeing my sons again, and trying to get divorced and just moving on with my life, all this stuff going through. And I got really, and I thought I was never going to have a relationship with my sons. And I started getting suicidal. I thought about it a lot.
Sure.
One night in particular, I because I was in construction, I knew like the anatomy of a house. So I cut a hole in the ceiling of my bedroom where I could tie a rope around the truss of the roof. And I was going to hang myself in my room. To be able to do that, I've started drinking. I drank a lot of Jack Daniels. I just grabbed a bottle and started drinking it. And I passed out in my room before I put the rope around my neck. And I'm, really grateful I didn't do that. But it scared my brother really bad because I had put a note on my door, on the outside of my door, to not come in and just call the police. I really thought I was going to do it. I really was going to do it that night. And I passed out before I did it, before I could do it. And I'm so grateful now.
Yeah, me too, and anyone listening.
There.
But Aaron,
I was there, right at the edge.
Yeah. So how can anything, I think it's just a reflection of how unhealthy Jehovah's Witnesses are, that so many of us get pushed to that edge. It's a lot of people pushed to that edge. And it has a lot to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, because at that point, when I did wake up the next day, I realized I could not let those elders have that much control over my life and over me.
Yes. Many of the reasons that people are looking for, well, I mean, I don't want to get into all the reasons, but sometimes people are just looking for a way out of an untenable situation that is created by Jehovah's Witnesses. It's their rules, it's their control, it's them forcing you into a box you don't fit into. And it creates extreme levels of depression and anxiety in people because we were all being pushed to be someone that we were not. And we were all being pushed to face all these crazy consequences that are extremely abusive, that we should not have had to face.
And not having, on top of that, the mental training to realize that's what's going on.
No.
You're completely unaware that you're completely unaware.
No, because we were mentally abused. So if you're mentally abused, how are you going to get yourself through your mind out of mental abuse?
Yeah. So it's really understandable. A lot of people get to that point.
Yeah.
That's the only.
I was there. Many people have been there.
That's the end of the road. That's into where that road goes.
Yes.
But I realized at that point that how much control they had over me and my thoughts and what I was doing. And I made up my mind right then that I could never let them do that again. So that was another big turning point for me in my thinking. But even then, I still wasn't 100% woke up to what really the organization. So fast forward, the elders, they ambushed me there at the parking lot there where we drop off the boys. He's like, I just wanted to talk to you. This, by the way, was the same elder that had come to my house by himself, and said he didn't believe anything I said, basically. So he's saying, I just wanted to talk to you. And I said, I really don't have anything to say to you. And I said, last time we met, You said you didn't believe anything that I said. I told you things that my wife said, and you said she would never say those things. I don't feel I have anything to say to you. And he completely forgot or would not admit that interaction ever happened. Like, he was there in front of my
Narcissist.
ex-father-in-law. He was standing there in front of my ex-father-in-law and my ex-brother-in-law, and he knew if he admitted that. So first of all, the elders aren't supposed to go just singly, by
Well, they could do
themselves
that,
to
but
any meeting like that, right?
no, they
Let
can.
alone to
But
my house, right? But that's, I feel like, I don't know this for sure, but I feel like that's why he wasn't admitting it, or maybe he just completely forgot. I don't know.
no,
But to
Aaron,
me, it was
Aaron, it's part of gaslighting. You don't admit
okay.
things. That's part of it. This is all gaslighting. They're all narcissists.
Okay.
They,
Okay.
no,
That makes sense. See, I'm
it's
still not aware.
so that you will doubt yourself. They will deny things that have happened. Jehovah's Witnesses, it's classic. Jehovah's Witnesses deny so many things that have happened, not just as an organization, but how many of us have approached a parent or something and said, you said or did this, and they're like, no, that never happened. Yeah, it did. And they don't want to admit it because they know how it looks. So they just pretend it doesn't happen. They do it. It happens to people all the time. Go read on Facebook or ex-Jehovah's Witness, ex-JW Reddit or whatever, and you'll see people all the time who have people in their lives that completely deny things that everybody knows happened. It's just like witnesses denying 1975. We all know it happened, or denying that child sexual abuse happens in their organization. They deny that too. They'll deny anything they can.
Yeah, you're right.
And make you feel like the crazy person. That's part of gaslighting.
Yeah.
It's a hallmark.
See, all these terms are relatively new to me,
Yeah.
Like gaslighting.
Well, of course he denied it. It didn't fit his narrative and what he wanted to happen.
Yeah. So he basically said, well, we're going to have to disfellowship you. And I said, do what you got to do. That's my exact words to him. I said, do what you got to do. I don't care. The only reason you want to do that is for your control, and you don't have that control over me anymore. So you do what you have to do. So I was disfellowshipped, I guess. I never heard of an announcement or thing, but I had already been being shunned before that. Like, when I told my mom I was leaving, just probably 2 years before that, I didn't hear much from her after that.
No, it's sad that they raised the shun.
Yeah, in fact, in between that time, I got a call from an old friend, and he was like, "Are you coming to the wedding?" And I was like, "What wedding?" This was, I wasn't disfellowshipped yet, but I had left the organization. And he called me, and he's like, "Your brother's wedding." And I said, sorry, I didn't know my brother was getting married. This was my youngest brother. He was at the wedding and calling me from the wedding and asking where I was. And then he got all embarrassed, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And, got off the phone real quick, but that was interesting. So I found out, from an old friend that my brother had just gotten married, and I wasn't invited or even told that he was getting married or anything. So that kind of hurt a little bit. But this was even before I was disfellowshipped. So that's, another reason why I was like, do what you got to do. It's already, I'm already being shunned anyway.
That's what they're about. Shunning is everything to them.
Yeah.
That's their biggest control mechanism.
Yeah. So I had already been trying to, rebuilding my life, making new friends and family and all that. So, but I still wasn't awake, not 100%. What did that was, so my sister's son, her first son she had when she was just after she got married, 19, got pregnant. He's all grown up now. I haven't seen him in 10 years. And my brother, my youngest brother, the one that got married and I didn't know, he's out too now, and I didn't know. So we went to a family reunion last year. Most of the witness parts of my family were not there, but my brother was there. So I got reconnected with my youngest brother, and I had no idea he had left the organization. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Getting reconnected with him. And that's when he told me about my nephew was out also, my sister's son. And it was no secret from a very, very young age that he was gay. It's pretty obvious from the time he was probably 6 years old. Just, I don't know, just the way he acted, or I don't know. So his whole childhood was pretty rough. Like his dad, the narcissistic one, super narcissistic, was really hard on him. Really hard on him. They like kept, like when he'd be a little kid and coloring, they would take certain colors away from him because they thought it would make him more gay or something like that. Like they wouldn't let him use pink pens and just that kind of stuff. Like his whole childhood. So he was raised to be homophobic, and he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very, very tough situation for him. I'm gonna shut the window. So at that family reunion, my brother tells me that my nephews also left his parents. They wanted him to just pretend and keep going, and live for Jehovah is what they called it. So basically be resigned to be single for his whole life. And
Aaron, because it's all fake and everybody's pretending.
Yeah.
This is a mask you put on.
Yeah. And I'm happy for my nephew that, he's going through a lot of stuff right now. He's going through a lot of pain.
Sure.
And hurt for losing his family. He really misses his mom. But he's super strong. Just to be able to do that, just to be able to realize that he couldn't live that way, and want to be happy. He's not happy right now, but, I just keep telling him that he can be happy. He can have a happy life. He just needs some therapy.
Well, yeah, and he'll be happy when therapy and when he starts to love himself. If my mom shuns me because I'm gay, then I don't have a mom to miss, because my mom was not really loving. Because if my mom only loves me if I am what she wants me to be, and if I do exactly what she tells me to do, that's not real love. And sadly, for many of us, we're grieving the loss of an idealized version of our parents and not who they really were, because our parents weren't that healthy. You can't be healthy and be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You can't be. And they don't know what love is. They think that love is control. Control is not love. Love is loving someone for who they are, not for who you want them to be.
Yeah.
Who's it about? Is it about me and what I want my child to be? Or is it about my child, who that child is, and my loving that child for who they are?
Yeah.
You wouldn't shun your kids because you love them, right?
Yeah. I can't imagine that. I can't even imagine that.
Jehovah's Witnesses don't even know what love is. Most of our parents didn't know what love really was. They don't understand. It's very sad. They just don't know.
They do it anyway. It hurts them. Yeah. I mean, I know it's not easy for my mom.
No, it hurts them too. Yeah, but they do it anyway.
None of her sons are left, in her religion.
Right.
And that's gotta hurt really bad. I know it does. And I feel bad for that, but she's just so blinded.
But it hurts because, like you said, she's blinded. So
Yeah.
she has
Yep.
narrow, intolerant beliefs. She can
Mhm.
only accept people that can fit through a narrow door that leads off into everlasting life. She can't have her
Right.
arms wide open for everybody else, can she?
No. Yeah. And then my sister's doing the same thing, you know.
Yes, it's
And it's
sad.
hard for my nephew. It's hard for my nephew because he was really close to his mom, and this is pretty fresh for him. I just keep trying to tell him. So yeah, I just keep trying to tell him to, trying to encourage him, trying to tell him that, that's not what life is. You can
No,
build such a better life for
there's a
yourself.
lot. There's a lot of gay people who have been on the podcast who are building better lives for themselves, and it starts with self-love and self-acceptance,
Yeah.
and learning to love ourselves. And if we can do that and not have to be defined by the way our mom sees us or our dad sees us or religious cult sees us, if we can
Yeah.
start to define ourselves through love, actual love, not
Hmm.
control, actual
Hmm.
love. If we can start to do that, then we can start to see how sick the rest of this all was. And it always has been.
Yeah.
Aaron, the ways that you felt in your life and the way that your nephew feels right now, it's never been about you. It's the environment. The environment produced all of these negative feelings and all of this pain in you. It was an
Yeah.
abusive environment from the beginning. It's always been abusive.
Yeah.
And when we can get away from the environment and start to learn to be healthy ourselves, that is when we can truly find peace and happiness and acceptance. And it's all out there for us to go get, but we've got to learn to get healthy first.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come just because you left something unhealthy behind. You have to learn new healthy things. You have to understand the patterns that were created in you that you have to break so that you can then let go of the past and walk into healthier things.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And that's basically what woke me up
Yeah.
100% was when I found out that he had come out, um, and told his parents he couldn't live the way that they wanted him to live. He's been struggling ever since then, like
Of
finding
course.
places to live. He's living with friends, and man, if I had some room for him to stay with us, I totally would. But we just are not in the position. So my brother is helping him, like they're getting an apartment together right now. Um, but he's just, oh man, he's so broken. He's just broken right now. I don't know if that's the right word. You look like you're
No, broke. No, me doing this is just because I just want to say, Aaron, you can see the pain in your nephew
Mhm.
and you can feel empathy for him.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you have that same compassion for yourself and all the fucked up things that you've gone through?
Yeah.
But we were
Yeah.
taught not to value ourselves. So we can value other people and we can feel for them. And a lot of people wake up in this way because we're so detached from who we are and we're not taught
Yeah.
to love ourselves that we can't be angry for ourselves the same way we can be justifiably angry for your nephew, right? You should
Yeah.
feel the same way about yourself because they broke you down in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, they
And it
did.
was
Yeah.
never right.
Hmm. Yeah. And I got through it even though I didn't realize
Yeah.
I didn't realize what I was doing, you know. Like I
Same
said, I
things they're
woke up
doing to
one
your nephew, they did to you.
yeah, and that's what the thing that woke me up was doing research for him, trying to
Mm-hmm.
find help for him.
Mm-hmm.
My wife um messaged me one day at work and she's like, I just found this YouTube channel that you needed to check out. And it was it was Lady C and
JT.
JT. And so I started listening to that at work and I was like, oh my God. And we were both, my wife and I, shocked at my reaction. Like, oh, man, it's so strange to think about now. I was out for so long and never looked at anything, never
Why didn't you
researched
look at
anything.
anything?
I just was done with it. You know, I don't know.
Wanted to be
I
done
think
with
about
it.
that now. Huh?
You
Yeah, I
wanted to
wanted
be
to.
done
I
with
thought
it,
I was. Yeah, I thought I was.
but you can't. We
Yeah.
were taught to live in denial our whole lives. We were in denial of our own thoughts and feelings our entire life. And so a lot of people leave and they're like, I'm just not going to look at that. It didn't affect me. I'm just going to move on. Nuh-uh.
Yeah. Plus,
No, you'll reach out to me 15 years, 20 years later and say, hey, I want to work with you in your coaching practice because I'm now realizing how this impacted me. I'm now starting to see some things that need some help because you don't look at it because they've programmed you not to look at it. You're not supposed to look at it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So I feel like a part of that is it took me so long because it takes a long time away from the organization to start seeing things normally or seeing things naturally.
Sure.
And just like the word apostate and like the connotations that brings up in your mind when you're close to the organization, you know, being just scared to look at anything.
Yeah,
You know,
terrible people like JT and Lady C, or terrible mentally diseased apostates like me. Just awful people.
You're so bad, man. Terrible. Yeah, that was something that kind of I'm glad I saw Lady JT and Lady C first because he seemed like an elder or like that type of.
Yeah.
He still seems like a brother, you know.
Yeah.
So it was easy to take in from somebody like that, but also at the same time it was kind of cringy because I've been out for so long. I was like, oh, this makes me kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a weird.
But we all find people. That's why it's important that there's so many voices out here because there's somebody's voice that will appeal to one person and not another person, and whatever, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. So that's how I woke up just recently, and this was 2 months ago now, I think. That I
13 years and 2 months ago you start waking up and seeing the reality.
Yep. I
That's
just
what
put
they
it all
do to
away.
people.
Yeah. Man, so now just, you know, like within the last 2 months, I'm trying to help my nephew. I'm trying to, you know, I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about mental health, things like that. My wife's been helping me a lot with that. I thought I was a pretty well-adjusted person, and then when all this came, when I realized all this, you know, it makes me realize how they've screwed us all up, you know.
Yes, it is an incredibly mentally and emotionally abusive environment at a minimum, and spiritually abusive as well. We can add in a lot of people, unfortunately, and also experience physical and sexual abuse in the organization too.
Yeah, I listened to your guests, and some of their stories are just so terrible and so sad. I debated about telling my story because you know, I don't have trauma like that. Not that it, you know, I mean, it just makes my story different. Not, I mean,
Aaron,
there's trauma. There's definitely trauma, but
yeah,
I'm glad I never dealt with any of that. And apparently I was around it, but just never got, like with my grandfather. I understand now why my parents kind of kept us away from him, or at a distance somewhat from him.
But trauma is trauma. Trauma is trauma. We all, whether it's mental, emotional, sexual, physical, whatever, we've all experienced trauma. And we've all, you know, your story may not have, let's say, sexual abuse in it in that way, but not everyone's does, and everybody's story matters. And, you know, we all identify with different parts of people's stories. And so it's important for, you know, all stories matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
So,
Trying to get my boys out too, gently. Um,
mhm.
I know I can't just, blast them with a bunch of stuff.
Nope.
I've been doing lots of research, but if I do that, they're going to go deeper in.
Mhm.
Um, they'll just reject me and go deeper in.
How old are
They
they?
make comments, 15 and 13 now.
Okay.
So I kind of slowly talk to them about certain things. I really want to go over some like Bible um inconsistencies with them, but I don't know how that will go over. Um
No.
that's
Anything
been
you
like my
do?
main stress right now is trying to figure out how to get them out, or not necessarily get them out, but at least let them recognize what they're getting into before they get into it too deep, before they get baptized anyway.
Ultimately, you cannot control and are not responsible for the outcomes of them or your nephew or anyone but yourself. But you
Hmm.
can, and I would encourage you to, ask questions, teach them how to think, not what to think. Help
Yeah.
them to see, does this make sense? You see this over here and you see this over here. Can you bridge that gap? Just asking questions and helping them to see things gradually over time. Do not, yeah, like you said, don't blast people with things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, um, everyone is on their own path, and you can't control where that path ends up or the timing or timeline of when someone may or may not wake up. There's no magic bullets here. If there was, we'd all have our families, but we don't. Everyone has they're on their own journey, and you can
Yeah.
help you can put some tools in front of them. You can expose them to some different ways of thinking, but you can't control what they pick up or what they think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
One other interesting thing, um, when after I reached out to you, for this and decided I wanted to do it, I talked to my grandma, and she's in her 80s now. And in talking to her, she apologized to me for for getting us all into this.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say to your grandma is, yeah, she started something, but she didn't do it with malicious intent.
Yeah.
Nobody wakes up one day and says, "I'm going to get in a cult and destroy my family." Nobody does that.
Yeah.
People think they've found something that is helpful or good, usually because they're in some sort of a vulnerable position, and then they find Jehovah's Witnesses or some other group, and they escape into it. They think that it has the answers. They learn to trust people outside of them rather than themselves because of their own vulnerabilities and traumas. And nobody, intent matters. People aren't being malicious here.
Yeah.
Your grandma never meant to hurt anybody. Um,
Yeah. I told her that. I told her I don't blame you. And I don't think anybody blames you. She just still feels a little guilty about,
well,
you know,
of
everyone
course.
that's still in it, because she knows the truth now too.
Yeah.
The truth about the truth.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that she knows that. So let me ask you, Aaron, is there anything that you do like about your new life? Anything good? At the end of this story, I know I'm not saying you have a perfect life today. I know there are people you still care about that are in the organization or are out and still being impacted,
Yeah.
and trying on their path of healing, like you're on your own path of healing. But is there anything that you do enjoy about your new life and what you've got going today? What's good?
I mean, everything except for the things you just mentioned, having family still in and all that. But yeah, my life is so much better. Just not having to worry about how many hours I'm going to get in service and just all of that stuff, peddling books and magazines to people. And it's such a better life. I'm happy.
And you've got a
And
wife now?
I've got religious trauma, but I'm happy. Yeah,
Sure.
my wife, my daughter, we have a daughter together. Um, and she gets to do whatever she wants. I mean, she can play sports if she wants to, any of that stuff. So I'm really happy about that.
So you get to see this other side of freedom now.
Yeah,
And
I have to. Yeah, I get to see her grow up the way that I wish I had been able to. But I also have to be real careful, I think, to not um, push my hopes and dreams on her.
of
You
course,
know,
of course.
try to let her find her own uh, passions. So that's tough, but I'm happy, man. I am. It's a good life.
I hope someday you two can go to the park and play basketball together.
Oh, we do, man. We do
Oh, you do?
all the
Okay, I don't
time.
know how old she
Yeah.
is. I don't
She's 6. She's 6 now, but I've had her playing since she was 4.
Nice.
So she is pretty damn good for a 6-year-old. It's funny. It's cool.
Nice. But you got to let her know she can't beat you yet, right?
No, she can't beat me yet. No. I mean, I let her win, but she doesn't know that yet. And actually, my sons are too. They really love basketball, but they're not allowed to play at school. I mean, they even have a hard time when we go to the park and there's kids there that want to play with us.
Yep.
They're getting better about that, but at first they were really cautious about playing with worldly kids, And I'm just trying to, there's nothing wrong with it. We can have some fun. And
Who
so
knows?
they're
Maybe
getting
basketball is the way that they see that other people aren't so scary.
Yeah, I think, they're definitely starting to realize that. I think the last time we went there, they were a lot more open and actually interacted with the other kids really well.
Good.
So that's good. Yeah. So yeah, I've got my new family, my new friends I've made. Yeah, my life. I'm happy with my life. Yeah, I'm happy with all of it.
Sure. Look,
It's
we
good.
all have messes to clean up from growing up in that environment, but
Yeah.
we can, and we can move on. And you've been moving on in some ways, and you've got others that you're working on, and we're all works in progress. So good for you. And I appreciate you telling your story, because I know that that's a big deal and it's not easy to do. And you sharing will help someone else, just like others sharing have helped you.
Yeah, I hope so, and I appreciate it. I think thank you for doing this
Sure.
for everybody, not just for me, but everybody.
Yeah, what I
Your
do.
your channel helped me a lot. I binged yours too, and that was really helpful.
Oh, this JW Life.
Yeah, that one and Shunned.
And
Yeah,
Sean. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that. And I love helping people. That's what I do. And that's what you're doing right now, and what you're, by opening up and telling your story. So I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm sure this is going to help some people out there.